and welcome to my channel, Tree Astrology. My name is Pia, and I'm an astrologer, and my foundations are in ancient Hellenistic theory, and I use the Western tropical zodiac, and I work with the whole sign house system. I'm just starting this channel and I'm growing it. If you like the content that I provide here, I would be super grateful if you could like the video and also subscribe. And also, you can check out my content on lifetreeastrology.com. You can sign up for my newsletter. I do regular posts on the new moons and the full moons, and also I am planning to do some new content on some basic astrological theory for those of you who are perhaps just beginning to get into astrology, would like to know how to access your chart and how to better understand it, and to make some sense of what it means when the planets are moving throughout the zodiac and then how it influences you. So stay tuned, and thank you in advance for your support. So today we're going to be talking about the Sagittarius New Moon. And just before I get into that, I just want to acknowledge that these have been some pretty momentous times, with some really big changes coming for all of us, especially since 2020 when, obviously we had that outbreak, but especially now leading up to 2026, we're moving into a time where all the outer planets will soon have changed signs. So this really, heralds some big lasting changes that are coming, and a real paradigm shift for us, humanity collectively, but also on a personal level. And I can personally testify that these have not been easy changes. As a Leo rising, there have been some really big challenges and sort of mining of depths that have been necessary in order for me to better align with my dreams and what it is that I hope to achieve in terms of my authenticity. So I'm wondering if it's been a bit of a challenging time for you too. And I've found that astrology is such a wonderful way to orient myself within the world and to make meaning out of what's happening. So I hope you do too. All right, so moving into our Sagittarius new moon. This is happening on the 19th or the 20th of December, depending on your location in the world. And it's happening at 28 degrees and 24 arc minutes. And I'm naming this new moon the last mile of the marathon. So let's just start off with what a new moon is. So a new moon is when the moon and the sun are conjunct. Okay, so they're right on top of each other. And when there is a new moon, it is the dark moon phase, which means that you are not able to see the moon for a couple of days. And this represents a clean slate. It is fresh beginnings. It is the planting of seeds. It is endings becoming new beginnings. And in Sagittarius, which is represented by the centaur, it really brings out issues concerned with intellect versus instinct. So the centaur is half man, that's the intellect part, and half horse is our instinct part. Sagittarius is a mutable sign. So a mutable sign means that it is concerned with transitions and dissemination of ideas. It's fiery, meaning it's enthusiastic, it's contagious, it spreads ideas, has faith and inspiration. It's masculine, meaning it has self-expression, often individual action. It is very action-orientated sign. It's direct, it's pioneering and explorative, and it's a very positive sign as well. And when we look at the centaur, it is the symbol of the archer as well, drawing his bow and aiming towards the distant horizon. So, this new moon is all about seeking new adventures, new meaning, higher knowledge, and distant horizons as well. It is associated with the sign because it's ruled by Jupiter. It is associated with long distance travel, foreign cultures, philosophy, higher education, faith, law, religion, and spiritual teachings as well. So when we put this all together, this new moon is really about igniting our passion, summoning our courage, our vision, embarking on bold new beginnings, with newfound confidence, and really asking ourselves, what sets my soul on fire? So this energy may spark on a more sort of day-to-day level. It might really spark your inspiration and your desire to travel or to make some travel plans to some foreign countries. It may really emphasize, encounters with people that bring you mentorship. It may also be a signal, not just physical journeys, but a philosophical journey as well. As I said, Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is a planet of expansion, of luck, and of wisdom. And currently, Jupiter is retrograding through, if we have a look, it's retrograding through Cancer. And so this is really, Cancer is a very fertile sign, it's watery, and Jupiter is exalted here, meaning that Jupiter is in its finest expression. It is honored in Cancer. So, this is a great time to be revising our foundations and really looking at what makes us feel safe, what makes us feel nurtured, especially in relation to our family and homeland connections. It is all about turning inward and truly asking us what nourishes us and what do we need to protect, or what do we want to protect within ourselves and within others, or, in terms of our loved ones. Cancer, as you know, is the sign of the crab, and the crab has a hard outer shell. So this can be about reviewing or releasing any sort of armor that we carry to protect ourselves and asking us whether it is still necessary, whether it still serves us, and whether it's actually preventing us from making deeper connections with people as well. This new moon is also supported by Saturn. So you will see that Saturn here, sitting in Pisces, is currently in a supportive trine aspect to Jupiter. And so Saturn here is really bringing structure to our aspirations. It's bringing integrity and maturity. It's asking us whether our expectations are realistic, and also reminding us not to forget our responsibilities as well. So the sun and the moon are also applying to, in here you can see the new moon is applying to a square to Neptune. So that means that this new moon is really infused with a sense of dreaminess, a sense of heightened sensitivity and compassion, and creativity, a desire to be connected to people, to the collective, a sort of mystical longing. Neptune tends to dissolve, so it dissolves boundaries, limitations. It really seeks unity. One of the things, or one of the downsides of Neptune, though, can be illusion or self-delusion, having a lack of boundaries, losing oneself, or having some sort of spiritual imbalance. So it's very important that we try and keep ourselves grounded as well, to make sure that we are not deceived by anybody, or that we don't deceive ourselves as well. Probably not a great time exactly when the moon is first seeding to make any big decisions or actions. Neptune here is asking us to sort of relax and enjoy this sort of dreamy time as well for a few days. So Saturn and Neptune are conjunct Pisces. So again, just to highlight, Saturn brings our structure, limitations, delays, and roadblocks to our idealistic visions that Neptune brings, and our expectations. And so the challenge here as well is to hold your faith through dedicated practice and, belief in what you're trying to achieve, and not to feel demoralized or defeated. So it's about accepting this imperfect world while still holding our faith. Together with this new moon, we have Venus. So Venus is co-present with this new moon, and Venus in Sagittarius is looking for a companion or relationships that invite or allow adventure. So Venus is a freedom lover in Sagittarius. She values authenticity, directness. She's attracted to foreignness, to new world views, and she loves a good journey or pilgrimage as well. And Venus is also square Saturn, so there may be a little bit of friction in relationships or a little bit of limitations in finance as well, with Venus ruling money. But then she moves into a square with Neptune shortly after in the 22nd. And this is really asking us to balance our idealistic sense of love and connection with reality as well, so that we don't get too disappointed or deceived. And so the lesson here is being able to love with compassion and with clarity as well. Mercury, as you can see, is also co-present with this new moon. And Mercury really in Sagittarius operates on the bigger picture. So Mercury here is concerned with universal truths. Mercury is a natural teacher. It can be a little bit evangelical in Sagittarius. It likes to discuss and disseminate ideas of grand narratives. Mercury can be a little bit honest to a fault, a little bit too direct sometimes. Mercury has sort of mental wanderlust in Sagittarius, can be quite restless, and is really looking for meaning. But ultimately, Mercury here is very optimistic. And this is really interesting because Mercury has recently returned from Scorpio, where it spent quite a lot of time in retrograde. So it came into Sagittarius and went, hang on, I need to go back to Scorpio and to revise some things. And while it was in Scorpio, both moving direct and after having returned and then going direct again, Mercury has really sort of mined the depths, the psychological depths of Scorpio. And for Scorpio, you know, from Scorpio, it has brought new philosophical clarity. It has unearthed some secrets. It's had some intuitive breakthroughs, especially after its Cazimi with the sun. So it had a meeting with the sun recently as well, where it downloaded some real inspiration and truths from the sun. And now it's arrived back in Sagittarius, sort of with new knowledge, new truths, and ready to share that wisdom in a liberated way in Sagittarius. Just to note that Mercury is at the bending of the nodes, meaning it is in a square to the nodes, the south node in Virgo, and also to the north node in Pisces. So whatever houses you know, whichever houses are represented by these in your chart, just know that there can be a little bit of friction there, a bit of tension. This can often happen, obviously, when we have new ideas, when we've come with new knowledge, or we want to enact some new change, or we feel different. Sometimes there can be a bit of resistance from those aspects of our lives. People naturally resist change. Okay, the other important thing to note too is that supporting or at the same time with this new moon, and I think supporting any new beginnings that you have in this area of your life, you've got Mars has moved into Capricorn, and Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So Capricorn is the feminine earth sign, and Capricorn here is very much about new beginnings. It's all about material, foundational resources and security. And so Mars here being exalted is fantastic at harnessing your drive, your energy, and your perseverance and strategy in building something new. And it's a wonderful thing to support any sort of new beginnings in your new moon. The other thing I just want to mention, oh, briefly as well, the moon will move into a brief conjunction shortly after seeding with Mars. So just about 12 hours afterwards, just be careful about getting into sort of any arguments or conflicts. This energy will move past reasonably quickly. So if there's any discussions that can be left to a later time, best do it. Okay, let's have a look at some other aspects of this new moon. This new moon is happening at the anaretic degree, which is the 29th degree of any sign. And the 29th degree of any sign carries with it sort of it's a critical degree. It has a sort of fated intensity to it. And more than that, it's also situated in the third decan of Sagittarius, meaning the last 10 degrees. And from Austin Coppock's beautiful book, The 36 Faces. This is known as the final test, this Deacon 3. So the difficulties which one must endure to complete an act of will. So it's basically the heroic journey. And the way I see it as well, it's really from a personal level, from a personal view. We're moving into the new year with some really big changes coming, and the planets finally all having outer planets all finally having moved into new signs, which really heralds a new time for us collectively, but also on a personal level. So the changes that you're bringing now for this final lunation of 2025 is a really important time. It's very symbolic of, making those important changes that reflect your authentic self, your authentic desires, and putting those in place as we move into that new year. But the third decan is symbolized by the Ten of Wands, so in the tarot. And this is really the sign, the tarot representing the weight of burdens, obligations, oppression, and endless tasks. No wonder it's actually ruled by Saturn. And so really this third decan is asking you, how much are you willing to sacrifice? And this is about, not giving up when you're at the end. I sort of see it as, you're going down the final gauntlet. The sun's burning down on you, you're hot, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, do I give this up or do I keep pushing through? So that's a question only you can answer. But I guess it depends on how much do you believe in this goal, in this vision that you're trying to achieve. And so the Temperance card also associated with this decan is asking you to find mediation, to find perspective, to hold your vision. And ultimately, the alchemy and the result will be the World Tarot card, which is also associated with this decan, is really the alchemy of changing burden into mastery. So the other interesting thing as well is that this is this new moon is sitting on top of the galactic center in conjunction. So the galactic center sits at 27 or lies at 27 degrees and 9 arc minutes of Sagittarius. And this is the rotational heart of the Milky Way. So literally at the heart of our Milky Way, there is the black hole, known as Sagittarius A. And this is an invisible gravitational pivot that governs the orbit of all the hundreds of billions of stars sitting in our Milky Way. And it is literally the black hole or the center of where all matter comes from. So it is our cosmic womb from which all structure emerges. So it is the metaphysical gateway to the cosmos. And I just love the symbolism of this from a metaphysical perspective. It's the gateway where human consciousness may touch the source of the cosmos, and where our individual purposes may merge with the collective. So it's almost like the connection to our evolutionary destiny. So here, Sagittarius searches for meaning. It finds it not in a doctrine, but in a direct encounter with the unity of all things. The silent pulling center that reminds us that our stories are written in the slow grand turn of the galaxy itself. So I just love that. It's such a beautiful connection to this new moon. All right, I'm about to jump into the individual horoscopes. I just wanted to give you some grounding on the fact that I just wanted to give you some information on the fact that I'm a whole sign astrologer, and that means that the horoscopes that I give are based on your rising sign. You can still read your horoscopes from your from your sun sign, that is still possible, but I do recommend your rising sign, um, which is basically your rising sign, your ascendant is marked by the zodiac sign that was rising in the sky at the time you were born. So some people call it your ascendant, some people call it your rising sign. As I said, however, astrology is very symbolic as well. So you can read from your sun sign as well. All right, let's begin. Okay, Aries, let's start with you. This new moon is happening in your ninth house. And your ninth house is the area of the higher mind, higher learning. This is the area of philosophy, of religion, of spiritual studies, and all foreign things. So this new moon may mean that you suddenly have an urge to do some overseas travel. Perhaps, it's related to teaching and learning. Perhaps that you decide to take on a post in a foreign country to do some teaching, or just a new job overseas. And you might have, lots of conversations that challenge your worldview or bring new points of view into your experience. So it's really about an expansive energy for you to really delve into. And this Sagittarius ruled by Jupiter. And so Jupiter is sitting in your fourth house. And in the fourth house of Cancer, Jupiter is exalted. So it's in its highest expression. It brings honor, expansion, and blessings. And so, whatever new endeavors that you undertake within these ninth house themes are really beautifully supported by your Jupiter. And that means that it's supported by your home, your family, your living situation. And really, with Cancer being the sign of your fourth house, it really shows that there's the possibility for great nurturance and support from that family area. Um, in addition to this, you have Mars, which has moved into your 10th house, and that is your Capricorn 10th house. And Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So Mars here channels its Martian energy into more constructive endeavors. It's strategic. Has a great deal of perseverance, um, and strategy. So this is a wonderful time for your career as well. So it brings you a lot of energy, a lot of willpower, a lot of ambition. It gives you that energy to really start something because you've got your Capricorn, which, is a sign that likes to initiate, and also that initiation and action energy from Mars as well. So this is a wonderful time to really drive your career ambitions, to try and achieve your long-term goals. And really your stamina and your energy at this time is formidable. Just be careful sometimes with Mars. There can be, because Mars really, drives the ego, there could be some problems with authority. So that's something that you might just need to be aware of. So also we have, oh, now Mars also rules your first house, by the way, and your eighth house, which is really interesting. So with a really strong, assertive, driven Mars, you're also going to find that your personal energy in your first house, which is the house that represents you, your body, your constitution, your character and what you give out to the world is also especially strong at the moment. You'll have a lot of drive, you have a lot of energy as well, a lot of desire to achieve things. And also in your eighth house as well, your Scorpio eighth house, there could be some, you might be more assertive in dealing with sort of karmic relationships. So relationships, often with loved ones or close ones. So basically, the eighth house is the house of karmic contracts, and it's really about resources that we share with other people. So that could be a spouse, that could be family money. It tends to be money that's not ours as well, so not singly ours. So it could be debts and taxes, it can be investments, it can be inheritances as well. So I think having Mars here in the eighth house will mean that you'll be able to be a bit more assertive in perhaps laying down some new constructive foundations in terms of the boundaries that you have with other people in these sort of shared resource areas. In terms of looking at this new moon, you can see that it's not just the new moon. So you've got the sun here, obviously, because it's a new moon, which means that the sun and the moon are conjunct. And having the sun in here again puts a lot of great focus on your ninth house because it is the house that the sun rejoices in as well. And then you have the new moon there at the exact same degree, at 28 degrees. And then you also have co-present Venus. So having Venus here is fantastic. Venus also is a benefic. The lesser benefic, it brings harmony to its relationships. Um, and what you'll find is Venus in Sagittarius here is really looking for inspiration. Venus is a passionate. Venus is looking for freedom and new adventures as well. And you've also got here Mercury sitting there, and Mercury in Sagittarius is very open, very direct, really wanting to share and exchange ideas. Just watch for being a little bit evangelical, which Mercury can be in Sagittarius. Um, but again, this is a real powerhouse to have in that ninth house. Just to note that Venus here in the ninth house is towards the or in the middle of a square to Saturn in your 12th house. That could mean that just for a little while up until the 23rd, there might be a feeling of restriction or limitation, or perhaps a slight lowered, maybe some doubts in your self-esteem up until that 23rd. Venus also rules money, so perhaps you could sort of feel a bit of restriction financially. But then Venus basically moves into an applying square to Neptune in your 12th house as well. And so this really adds a sort of a dreamy Neptunian quality to Venus. Neptune signifies that ethereal, boundless realm of communion with with everybody. It's looking for compassion and beauty, and it's very dreamy. So that's a wonderful thing for Venus, and especially for the aspirations and dreams and the sort of the goals and your adventure that you will experience through this ninth house. Just as a note of caution, obviously it is in a square to Neptune. And some of the sort of shadow sides of Neptune can be over idealism, so idealizing something. It can be, lacking boundaries, losing oneself, escapism, addiction as well. So, just a note to, keep your feet on the ground as well, but to also, of course, enjoy that real dreamy connection that Venus is searching for here in Sagittarius. So moving back to focus on that Saturn and the Neptune sitting in your 12th house. Um, so 12th house is it can be a bit of a challenging house. So the 12th house is I like to call it's kind of like the basement, where you like to you haven't been down in the basement for a while. You know that there's lots of stuff that needs sorting. You can't even remember what's down there, stuff that you can't deal with, you just kind of chuck it down in the basement. And you think, oh, really, I need to go in there and sort of clean up and resort and I don't know, get rid of the cobwebs. So this is really the 12th house of the subconscious. And in the ancient astrological sort of Hellenistic theory, we called it the house of bad spirit. And so the house of bad spirit can be, it can be past traumas, it can be self-defeating self-talk or behaviors, it can be feelings of isolation or sorrow. The 12th house also represents hospitals and institutions and prisons. Um, but we all have the 12th house. So having Neptune here, um, has really been about trying to find connection in this area, trying to look for compassion, or finding compassion for yourself as well. Um, and but with Saturn in here as well, it's and by the way, this is trine to Jupiter as well, who's sending its blessings here in a very supportive trine. This is really a time about, and has been for the last 2 or so years with Saturn there, and I think 2011 with Neptune, for really working through any sort of past inadequacies or any hidden limitations that you're holding. It's about releasing any mental or emotional barriers as well, and really sort of shining a light on any self limiting or self-undoing behaviors or thoughts that is really holding you back. So really by shining a light and sorting through some of these emotions, it can really help to disempower them so that they don't sort of operate from the shadows and affect our satisfaction in life, our direction, and really to have a healthier mindset as well and a healthier psyche. Obviously it doesn't mean that everything, we carry wounds with us, but it's really about moving forward in a more conscious way with them and with better structures in place. So if you haven't already, it's a wonderful time to, before Saturn and Neptune leave for good, which they will both do. Um, they'll meet again at the 0 degrees of Aries on February the 14th. It's a very good time to put some spiritual practice in place that's going to support you, get some counseling, something that's really going to help you in this area as well. Okay, so, and again, sorry, just to mention there, because you've got Jupiter supporting all this as well. So Jupiter is really lending support and blessings from your fourth house of home and family as well. So a really fantastic time to do this. The other thing I just wanted to mention is coming back to that 12th house, you've got, and if you look across to the ninth house, your sixth house on the other side, this axis, 12th and 6th house, 12th and 6th house axes are being visited by the nodes of the moon. So you have the north node sitting in your 12th house, and you have the south node sitting in your sixth house. So, this is the house of obviously your subconscious and things that may afflict your mind. It's about getting that healthy. And so, having that north node here is really about building some lasting structures that are going to support you, as I mentioned, but also with the south node sitting in your sixth house, this could be about releasing sort of any unhealthy day-to-day habits, or that don't either support you in terms of your organization and your ability to really excel in terms of your career and your aspirations, and also instilling, replacing them with some sort of healthy routines and diet and things that are really going to support your physical health as well. So yeah, that's going to happen for the next year or so as they travel through your 12th and 6th house axis. I can't say my S's today. All right. What else did I want to mention? So uh, let me have a look. So I guess one of the things too is that you've had Uranus as well. If you see here, Uranus has been traveling through your second house of finances, livelihood, and your material resources. And Uranus has been there since 2000. Well, it's been about, let's just say, 8, almost 9 years. Uranus has dipped back in again and will leave for a very long time, not to return. We'll move into Gemini on the I think it's the 26th of July. So Uranus is the great awakener, the great liberator, and it's really been moving through your second house. You might have found that your finances may have been a bit unstable during these last 8 years or so. Um, if there was any sort of energy or hmm, let's say connections in place to your money that was not working for you, or perhaps had calcified, or perhaps not allowing you to have the freedom to do what you want, then Uranus is really coming through that second house and really creating or breaking up anything that is stale or fixed. Sometimes as well, it can be a bit of a shock. Uranus rules lightning, unexpected, sudden events. And so really it's one of these situations where if you're stubborn and you hold on to something that's not working, refusing to bring something new in, Uranus is one of these planets that can basically come in and just create a situation or a sudden event that really forces your hand to make some changes. But I would say that if that is happening to you, even though it's quite shocking and unsettling, ultimately, Uranus is breaking things up to, create room and space for new structures that are going to work much better for you in the long run. Um, what else have we got here? I think that's it. So just to summarize, the big action is happening in your ninth house. So this is your belief system. This is about being adventurous. This is about learning new ideas, meeting new cultures. It can be new religious studies. It can be teaching. It could be traveling overseas. It can be returning to university for studies. Um, so the ninth house has a very strong support and connection to your fourth house of home and family. So I would say that if you do need to move overseas, it looks like it's supported by your family who will support you and perhaps move with you if that's the case. Um, but very strong support here from Jupiter. And as well, any sort of work that you have been doing and continue to do until basically mid-February, in terms of any sort of negative or self-limiting traumas or behaviors that is, holding you back, this is a fantastic time to really sort through them so that you can really, achieve your aims with Mars here in your 12th house, really pushing you and saying, hey, let's do this. Okay, let's move our public actions. Let's achieve that goal in my career. So there's a great deal of support here, Aries. So I hope you have a fantastic rest of the year. And I look forward to, you know, talking to you at the next horoscope. Okay, so Taurus, this new moon happens in your eighth house, and it's really bringing closure and transformation to this part of your life. So the eighth house is your shared resources with other people. So that could be your spouse, it could be family. It tends to be money that is not yours alone. So money that you share with perhaps a spouse, or it could be with family, for instance. It represents debts and investments. And it's also the house of intimacy as well. So this is the house of karmic patterns. So what karmic contracts do you have with people in your life in terms of what you give to them, what they give to you? This can really bring up anxieties as well and control issues. So look at how you can restructure these karmic debts. Can you close them? Can you renegotiate them? And also, this is the house of death. So I don't want anybody to get worried, but it is the house of closure and finishing. So not necessarily death in a figurative sense. I've had Saturn going through my eighth house now for 2.5 years, and it certainly has been eventful. There hasn't been any literal deaths, but it's really looking at the death or endings of situations in that eighth house. When we're looking at this eighth house too, you've got Mercury co-present in there. So Mercury being co-present is really looking at seeking meaning. It's very open. In Sagittarius, it's tolerant. You're looking at justice and universal truths. So giving you a real support in terms of your communication and your negotiation of any sort of karmic contracts that you have with people in your life. And Venus is also in there as well. So Venus is there. Venus is very passionate. freedom seeking, adventurous in Sagittarius. So you might feel this real strong urge to really reframe those relationships that you have with people in your life that you do share resources with, or have those sort of karmic contracts with. Venus, when this new moon first seeds, is square to Saturn. So Saturn here, the hard taskmaster, is really bringing some perhaps restraint or structure to those relationships. It can really highlight duty or responsibilities, and that means that you're really going to have to negotiate for a while that balance between your duty and your desire for freedom in your relationships. So it just expects some small limitations or roadblocks that could also be financial, as well as Venus rules money. Venus then is also about to move into a square with Neptune. So really, this is really going to ask you to look at how you look at relationships. Are you being too idealistic in your relationships? There could be love relationships or familiar relationships or other. Making sure that you're not being disillusioned, or sorry, yeah, have illusions with those relationships. It's really asking you to be more realistic as well. So it's asking you to love with compassion, but also with clarity. The eighth house is ruled by Jupiter. So the ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter. And currently, Jupiter is retrograde in Cancer, in your third house. Now, Cancer is exalted here in Cancer. And so Cancer is very much about nurturance. It's about family or your loved ones. It's about protection as well. So you'll probably at this time be revising your mind as well. So the third house, just to explain, the third house can be your inner workings of your mind, your patterns. It can also be, it's about your neighbors, your local community. It's about your siblings. It's about your early education. It's about your communication skills as well. So with this new moon and with Jupiter supporting this new moon, it's about revising your mind and your patterns, looking at what truly gives you safety and nurturance, who you want to protect, what you want to protect within yourself. And really, Jupiter brings expansion as well and luck. So it's asking you to expand your connections within your neighborhood, your local community, turning your mind inwards and really establishing what it is that truly nourishes you as well. And really, it's a great time to release any outworn beliefs or protective mechanisms that you've developed. So, and it is very auspicious for, receiving support with these eighth house issues or developments. So look for support from your local community, your neighbors and your siblings as well. So as well, Jupiter, which has been transiting your third house in Cancer since June of this year, Jupiter is actually currently in a trine with Saturn. So Saturn sitting in your 11th house. So your 11th house is your colleagues, your social circle, your friends, it's your dreams, your aspirations. So with Jupiter in a trine to Saturn, it's really looking at you. It's asking you to have that expansion within your local community and within your mind and within your communication, but also to expand that with structure, with reality. So aspiration with integrity and maturity as well. One of the big stories for you as well has been having Uranus, I'll just point him out here, in your first house. So this is a really big deal for you, Taurus. Taurus, your first house is basically the helm of your ship. So this is your identity, your body, your disposition. And really, Uranus represents what we call Uranus, the Great Awakener. Uranus brings awakenings, innovation, revolution, rebellion, surprising events, sometimes shocking events. And so Uranus here in your first house is asking, really probably has been creating a personal revolution for you in the last almost 9 years now that it's been traveling sort of through Taurus, and it did pop out for a little while to Gemini, and it will return to Gemini. But think back and look at the changes that have really been happening to you in terms of your identity, your body, your disposition, your values. So it's really about a personal transformation radiating out as well. So, we know that as within, as so without as well. So whenever we change on the inside, that ripples out to the world at large, to our relationships, to our actions, to everything. So I would really, connect this as well, that the changes that you're going through personally are also then, of course, going to affect your eighth house in terms of your contracts with other people, your duties, your responsibilities, and also obviously the way that you communicate and associate with your local community. And bringing that to, we mentioned briefly the 11th house. So Saturn and Neptune have been traveling together through your 11th house for some time. Neptune a lot longer than Saturn. I think it's off the top of my head, 2011 Neptune. Saturn probably for about 2.5 years now. And this is very interesting because in the 11th house, you may have been reviewing your friendships, your social circles. Neptune brings, visions and aspirations that are very idealistic. It's very much about, no boundaries, everybody connecting in groups. And then Saturn is there saying, don't idealize people too much. So bringing kind of reality and going, whatever you're trying to build in that 11th house of your dreams is going to take hard work. You need to be realistic. You need to build those foundations. So it's about growing your social network, but with a realistic outlook and achieving your aims. So it could also be that you've revised your aspirations and your dreams in a more sober light, or in terms of now having a better understanding of yourself, or the sort of changes that have happened thanks to Uranus in your first house. Meanwhile, Mars, you can see here Mars is currently, or has entered your Capricorn house, which is your 9th house. So Mars here is exalted in Capricorn. So this is a very effective Mars, a much more constructive Mars than usual. So your 9th house, your house of higher learning, philosophy, religion, worldview. It's the house of foreign travels and cultures. So you have greater courage and conviction at the moment as well. And it really gives you that drive and the courage to fight for and build a new belief system. So with this 9th house connection as well, you could be deciding to return to your studies, to take up a teaching position somewhere, perhaps even overseas, deciding to travel. In here, Mars is really asking you, what truth is worth building a lasting fortress for? So what strategic long-term campaign must you wage to defend and expand this new vision that you have? So this is all about you, Taurus, releasing control and to reset the dynamics of your life. So what deep attachments do you need to release? And now we move to Gemini. So Gemini, this new moon in Sagittarius is happening in your 7th house of committed relationships. So it's very interesting because when we go back to the last full moon, this was actually in your 1st house. And now we're shifting to your 7th house. So there's a real shift from me to we, or from self to other. And so partnerships are very much in focus. And the 7th house is committed relationships. That can be romantic. It can also be business partnerships as well. So there's a real need for equilibrium between yourself and others. And that can be, even if you're not in a relationship, that can just be how much you give to relationships and how much you take. So having that balance and the boundaries in place. So this new moon signals a beginnings of a new phase in relationships. And that can be taking vows, for example. It can be starting a new project together, embarking on some couples therapy. So really it's asking you to think, what new beginnings do I wish to initiate through partnership, and what part of myself must I meet in the process? Because as we know, partnerships, relationships are basically mirrors of ourselves. So Jupiter is also retrograde in the second house. So you'll see here that this new moon is supported by Jupiter, and Jupiter is in your second house of resources, of values. Values is a bit more of a modern interpretation of that, but really in terms of what resources, material and skills that you build for yourself that help you to support yourself in this world. And so Jupiter really brings growth here and expansion. So you might be looking at new purchases, new joint projects with that partner. And really, it puts a focus on your material security and your resources in light of also of ethics and a broader belief system, which Jupiter represents. Just a note here as well, watch for overspending. So Jupiter can inflate, and that means he can inflate your confidence and your ego as well. So if you're making any big decisions financially in terms of your resources or how you support yourself, just make sure that you review that decision with a grounded mind as well. So Venus is also here. So Venus is in with the new moon in your seventh house. So Venus in the seventh house here is really bringing that need for harmony, but also with Sagittarian flavor too, which means that you're looking for truth, you're looking for freedom, you're looking for adventure within your relationships as well. And for a brief moment, when Venus, at the time of the new moon, Venus is in a square to Saturn in your 10th house. So there may be some initial barriers or some blocks or tension that you might feel in terms of those relationships, and that could be financial as well because Venus rules money. And perhaps you need to have a look at also how that affects your 10th house of reputation, your public actions, and your career as well, which is currently where Saturn is sitting. Also sitting in your 10th house of career is Neptune. So Neptune and Saturn have been here for quite a while. They've been traveling together. Neptune much longer, since 2011, Saturn probably for about 2.5 years. And this has really been asking you to restructure your public actions, your reputation, your career goals. Neptune is very idealistic, very compassionate in her best, or in its best expressions. So you may have really wanted to build a more compassionate career. You might have had really big dreams and ideals during this time. And then Saturn has been here really asking you to be patient, asking for integrity, responsibility, and really asking you to review whether those long-term aspirations and goals are overly idealistic, and perhaps asking you to adjust them slightly as well. Never mind though, because Jupiter in the second house which is trining both that Saturn and that Neptune in your career house, really is providing wonderful support in a very positive trine aspect. So really giving blessings to those long-term goals. So don't give up, even if things can seem a little bit complicated. You've had to make some adjustments. This Jupiter is really saying, and Saturn is saying, have your conviction, keep your beliefs, and don't be afraid of some hard work. All right. Also, Mars has moved into your 8th house. So Mars here in Capricorn is very, it's exalted. And so Capricorn is probably in one of its more constructive expressions. Obviously, Mars can be, is drive, ambition, cutting, violence, war at its most extreme. But also in a more, day-to-day aspect, Mars here really brings drive, ambition, strategy, resilience, perseverance. So the 8th house is not a typically easy house. The 8th house is where the house of karmic entanglements and contracts, financial resources that we share with other people. So that can be with a spouse, that can be with family. So there may be, if we're linking it back to the seventh, in terms of a new project or aspect that you're entering into with your committed partner, there could be some aspects related to shared resources or family karma connections that need to be sorted. But Mars here really has that strategy and vision to really help you make some changes in this eighth house. What else should I mention? You've got Mercury sitting in your seventh house as well. So Mercury here in Sagittarius in your seventh house of committed relationships. It's again very much about open communication. It's about a search for truth. Mercury here is not afraid to debate and discuss philosophical discussions or debates. Just watch for being too, evangelical in your beliefs as well. That can be like a bit of a shadow aspect of Mercury in Sagittarius. However, so when we put this all together, this is really about finding a new equilibrium between you and others, your committed partner, your spouse, for example, or a business partner. What new alliances will help you to balance your duality, Gemini? And then ultimately, with this new balance of self and other, there are lessons in terms of, your professional self and what you put out there into the world, and also your tangible resources and your skills and how you are going to marshal them to really to make sure that, the way that you view your resources and how you get those resources and finances, they align with your higher values and your higher goals as well. So this is a fantastic time to make some real big differences with that wonderful support of Jupiter, the sort of, not so fun, but, lessons from Saturn as well, to be resilient, to be to persevere, to also have don't be shy away from responsibility. So yeah, a real balancing act for you, Gemini, but a really wonderful time for some really big breakthroughs as well. Okay, so Cancer. This new moon is happening in your sixth house. This house traditionally is the house of drudgery, slavery, responsibility, chores, physical ailments, accidents, conflict with co-workers. So it all sounds very doom and gloom, but it's not all. We all have these aspects in our life. No, hopefully not the accidents, but they are possibilities in life. Certainly we have drudgery, we have responsibility. We tend to look at this house now in a more modern context to be more about, the daily grind of life admin, the routines that you have in your life, obligations for, paying bills, going shopping, doing the housework, things that we all have to deal with. And also there's a focus on obviously supporting your health. And unfortunately, physical ailments is something that none of us can avoid. That doesn't mean that you're going to have any, ailments to your health, but also, it's about focusing on the routines, the diet, the exercise, and things to really give your well-being the best possible chance of thriving and supporting that. So, this house is it's a mix of challenges and rewards as well. Also of note is that the sixth house is also the house of pets, so small animals. So with this new moon here, it could mean a new pet. But also, it is really about new beginnings in terms of your daily life and how you support your health, and also your co-workers as well. So if there's any challenge in terms of your co-workers, it's about turning over a new leaf, creating better relationships, maybe some compromise. You've got Venus and Mercury also co-present in your Sagittarius sixth house. So Venus here working for greater harmony in terms of your relationships, and certainly Mercury here in terms of better communication in your work relationships as well. Venus in Sagittarius is very much about freedom and adventure. So there could be that you're really feeling this sort of, there's tension between the things that you have to do in your life, your responsibilities, and really just longing for a sense of greater freedom within this part of your life. So Venus, as I said, is there to support. But initially, when the new moon seeds, Venus is in a tense aspect to Saturn. So there may be some limitations in terms of your social interactions, trying to improve a difficult work relationship that you might have. It can also be internal, feeling a little bit inadequate or questioning how lovable you are or deserving of love, something that we can all deal with at times. So then, but however, this is temporary, and then Venus basically moves into a square with Neptune as well shortly after that new moon. So, Neptune is really asking you to dream bigger, and it's very idealistic. Neptune is all about, that ethereal dream, sort of compassion, connection. So, making sure that you're having that, connection that really for yourself. So having compassion for yourself as well. So that's Neptune and Saturn sitting in your ninth house. And, in your ninth house is the house of your belief system. It's about new learning. It's about your travels. It's about religion, or it can be spiritual learning. So, it's really asking you to have faith to get you through some tough times if you're having a tough time with sixth house themes. And, perhaps they're asking you to have a more realistic, but also, to hold your dreams, but still be realistic, and perhaps to consider a sea change or a move overseas. You might be thinking about returning to study. Maybe the grind of your current job is just really getting you down. And this could really provide better outcomes for your sixth house. On the other side as well, you could be like working full time. You could be trying to study full time, and really the pressure on your health and well-being may need to shift. So do you need to reconsider, lightening your study load as well, for example? Or maybe you'd like to reconsider, really engaging your spiritual faith more to get you through some of these more tougher times, to bring greater meaning into your life. Sometimes with the drudgery of the sixth house, it can just feel like we are, going through the motions. So having a greater outlook on your life to help lead you and give you that sense of faith to get you through some of the tougher times as well. Luckily, Jupiter, which rules the Sagittarius house, your Sagittarius house, it rules Sagittarius, but it's ruling the planets that are sitting in your sixth house. So Jupiter is sitting in your first house, and I'll get to that in a moment. But Jupiter is a greater benefic. It brings blessings, it brings expansion, it brings an expansion of your mind as well, of your personal circumstances. So there's a wonderful support from Jupiter here. And Jupiter in your first house has really been overseeing a bit of a personal renaissance for you since it first came in to your first house, which I think was June of this year. So you may find that you've had a real sort of boost in your confidence since then, an expansion of, how you see yourself, who you are, again with the belief system as well. So you may be really reviewing your personal beliefs, what's important to you, your integrity, all of those things. Just be careful with Jupiter, it can inflate. So, because it expands. So just, it can inflate your ego. It can make you slightly overconfident. And, especially in your first house, which represents you, your physical body, your mind, your disposition, everything, you can actually put on weight as well. So just watch for that. So these changes in your sixth house are really being supported by a greater understanding of yourself, greater confidence in who you are and what you want and what you believe in. And on top of that, Jupiter is in a really supportive trine to Neptune and Saturn, who have been moving through your ninth house you know, of higher learning, philosophy, religion, all things foreign, traveling. So whatever changes that have been going on in that area of your life are really being given greater stability by Jupiter. So on top of that, Uranus over here, I don't know if you can see that. Let me just make sure I'm pushing the right button. So Uranus has been moving through your 11th house for almost 9 years. So your 11th house is really about your social circle, your allies, your friendships, your colleagues to some extent, or, the people that share your aspirations and dreams, and also, the dreams that you have for yourself. So Uranus here is the great awakener. Uranus likes to shake things up. So Uranus moves in and basically says, have you fossilized in any of these areas? Do you have relationships that, are not working for you anymore, where you don't share those aspirations or dreams anymore with these people? Have your dreams shifted as well? So Uranus here brings rebellion, sudden changes, innovation, sudden downloads of insight. And you can't really resist Uranus. If you are resisting change, Uranus often will come in and just create some situation or an event that forces your hand basically to make some changes. So I'd be surprised. Well, I'd be interested to hear how Uranus has been shaking up your 11th house. So the key tasks for this new moon for you is really about thinking about building resilience in your routines and your daily life that support a larger vision, and making any changes to allow for that. So, your nurturing nature needs, which is, you're naturally a very nurturing person, or you have that aspect in you, Cancer. So really thinking about nurturing and protecting the things in you that are important, how you're growing and how you're changing, and really how that meets your daily life, your discipline practice. So, what health or work chapter may be closing or changing to make space for that growth. So consider, it's about mastering your realm, and constructing change in work and wellness according to your higher beliefs. All right. Thank you, Cancer. Okay, Leo. So I'm also Leo rising, so I thought I'd disclose that before we start. This new moon is happening in your fifth house. So I'm just getting my little pointer ready. So your fifth house here is a really beautiful house. So this is the house of Venus's joy. It's all about um, pleasure, creativity, being your authentic self. It's about pleasurable activities. It's about children as well. So when we're looking at the new moon here in that fifth house of Sagittarius, this is where, your adventurous spirit meets your joy, meets your creativity. And Venus, as I mentioned, is in her joy here and she is present. So this is really a beautiful time for, festivity, really pleasurable activities, socializing, inspiration and creative energy. Um, and she does hit a brief square from Saturn at the beginning of this new moon in the eighth house. So there may be some limitations from Saturn in terms of, family responsibilities or duties that you may have to family, or there could be maybe some slight limitations financially for a while. But then eventually this is short-lived up until about the 23rd. And then Venus moves into your square with Neptune as well, sitting in your eighth house. So as she moves into that square with Neptune, there is a real dreamy feeling, an expansive feeling, a real desire for sort of unity and connecting with people. Just watch for, the shadow side of Neptune can be sort of a nebulousness or illusions. Neptune is also connected to addictions, and certainly with the fifth house, one of the negative sides of the fifth house, depending, on where your personal planets are, it can be overdoing pleasurable things. So there can be addiction, and especially with that connection to Neptune. So just be aware of those aspects as well. So, but this is a really beautiful time. So you've got Mercury, you've got Venus, you've got the moon, you've got the sun all sitting in your fifth house, and they are all being ruled by Jupiter. So Jupiter is here in your 12th house. You can probably see that I'm showing you. And Jupiter's been moving through your 12th house since June. It's currently moving retrograde, but this is really bringing healing to a house that is quite a difficult one. So, the 12th house is your most hidden emotional and psychological aspects. So Jupiter here is all about healing. It's about expansion. It brings blessing. So this is a really wonderful time to unearth any self-limiting beliefs or childhood traumas or self-defeating behaviors that are operating from your subconscious. So it's important, dare to shine a light here on any difficult parts of your psyche. That can be through medication, through meditation, dedicated spiritual practice, or sort of any professional counseling. So a wonderful time to heal, to sort through, the basement of your psyche, basically. And really, I think what this does is it allows you to take greater control of your life, to not have these sort of hidden aspects of yourself controlling your life or the direction of your life in any way, or affecting, restricting its being able to affect your relationships, or, your psychological well-being. So it's a good time here to excavate. Another thing too that I wanted to show you is that you have Mars, which has now moved into your sixth house. So Mars, the sixth house is not an easy house. We all have this house. The sixth house is, the daily drudgery, our responsibilities, our duty, our life admin. It can be physical ailments, it can be illness, it can be accidents. It is the house of pets as well. So, but it's not all negative. In a more sort of modern sense, we look at this as the house of, having good day-to-day routines, and especially health routines as well. And really, Mars is exalted in Capricorn as well. So Mars is in its most constructive uh, form, in a sense. So that Martian energy is being channeled through more constructive um, channels, really. And so it can really support that discipline, that resilience, the dedication to create new day-to-day routines for yourself that are really going to help to support your physical and mental wellness as well. Uh, Neptune and Saturn, I want to come back to that because Neptune and Saturn have been going through your house, or our eighth house, for some time now. Neptune, I think, since about 2011. Saturn, certainly for at least 2 and a bit years, it has moved in and out. And this, the eighth house is also a very challenging house. The eighth house, as I mentioned, is those sort of karmic bonds or contracts that we have with other people, financial, relationship-wise. It can be shared finances, debts, um, investments, and really as well, when you look at the lunar nodes also sitting in your second, or in our second and eighth house axis, this is really bringing up, finances and resources. So second house with the south node, they're looking at, it could be loss or letting go of aspects of your relationship to money and finances, how you relate to it, what it means to you emotionally as well. And then with the North Node as well, there could be expansion or new areas of understanding in terms of those shared resources that you have with, for example, with a spouse or family as well. So a real realignment where those North and South nodes are as well. And so with this, Neptune here in the eighth house, just watch for there could have been sort of dreams or unrealistic expectations of certain, arrangements, relationships, or, karmic emotional contracts that you have with people here, that Saturn may have sort of brought crashing down through reality, responsibility, or some harsh lessons. Ultimately, though, as difficult as these lessons can be, the Saturn, Neptune, when they leave, they'll both be leaving, or they'll both be together at 0 degrees of Aries in February 14th. And this will really mark a very big new shift and a new beginning for Leos as well, and for everybody in certain different aspects and areas. So think of this as the hard work being done now so that you can move into, when they move into that Aries area of your ninth house next year, there's going to be um, uh, less restriction, better understanding, better boundaries, and better arrangements that are going to allow you the freedom to explore that beautiful ninth house of new world views, higher learning, new belief systems as well. And what else did I want to mention? I think that is it. Oh yeah, just coming back to that eighth house, I'm just looking at some notes I have. The key to balancing that Neptune and that Saturn is really to find, to be able to uphold your compassion and your responsibilities, but still negotiating new boundaries and a new balance that you are able to maintain without feeling depleted or compromised, but without shirking your responsibilities. So, not an easy thing, but a very important thing as well. So, if we're looking at this as a whole, I would say that this new moon in this fifth house is really asking you to think about, you know, who are you truly? What is it that you want to express and create? Um, and what things make you happy, in the sense of expressing who you are, being creative. It's the house of children as well, by the way. So there could be some new beginnings for your children. Certainly could signal a new pregnancy. It might be a surprise pregnancy, since although Jupiter is a very fertile sign, Jupiter is currently in aversion with it doesn't have a direct line of sight basically to this new moon. So it could be an unexpected pregnancy, but it can also mean sort of new shifts and beginnings for your children, especially if you have older children as well. But again, with Jupiter's blessings, these are some really positive new beginnings in your fifth house. So, yeah, finding creativity, certainly with Sagittarius here, it's asking you to be bold. It's asking you to be adventurous, and it's asking you to have a longer term vision, thinking about the centaur shooting its bow, far into the horizon. And then Mars sitting in your sixth house is asking you to make sure that you keep that responsibility in your daily life and your foundations, to keep your life chugging along, to keep your health on track, to really make those goals and visions happen when Neptune and Saturn move into your ninth house next year. And just a brief note too, obviously, Uranus has been moving through our 10th house for some time now. And I can certainly speak for myself that there has been, over the last 8 to 9 years, some really big changes in terms of my career. And it's not finished yet. So that will be leaving, Uranus will be leaving next year. I think it's in July 26th. On the 26th. So there's still some big changes. But once Uranus moves into that Gemini 11th house, then this really signals the fact that, or marks the fact that all the outer planets have now moved into new signs. So amazing new beginnings for everybody and for the world and for the collective as a whole. All right. Thank you, Leo. And I hope you have a nice rest of I hope that the rest of your December is a good time. So, okay, so now let's move to Virgo. So, Virgo, this new moon is happening in your fifth house. So, oh, sorry, in your fourth house. So you can see here your fourth house is lit up. You've got the sun, the moon conjunct, which is what they do when it's a new moon. And you've got your Venus and you've got your Mercury sitting here. So your fourth house is very busy. And so this new moon is really bringing in a new chapter in your home life, your family, your living situation. That could be people you're sharing house with. But it's really the most personal, private aspects of your life where you go to recharge. You can also, represent family, ancestry, um, family lands as well. But this is where the new beginnings are highlighted. And with Sagittarius here, there's a real hopeful quality, a real sort of infused with aspiration. And with Sagittarius being um, a sign that is able to change. It's really looking at new movement and change within this house. So the focus is on your home and family, but also it is currently being ruled by your by Jupiter, which is sitting in your 11th house. So this is wonderful link to Jupiter bringing expansion and blessings to your social circle. So the 11th house is basically your friends, your allies. It can be the house of mentors. It's the house of your dreams and aspirations. And really, Jupiter here has been bringing growth and expansion to these areas since about June of this year. So, with Jupiter, we are talking about your beliefs as well. So, your belief system, and really it might be asking you to reflect on whether the friends and the people in your social life are still reflect your own aspirations and dreams, or whether they have um, the same values as you do. Not saying that, we can't have friends that don't, but, there might be a bit of a focus on that as well. So you might be finding that, your social circle is expanding during this time, that new people are coming in to help you because Jupiter often brings in helpful people into our lives. It can also be the sign of teachers, so mentors and teachers. So really a beautiful thing because you've got this house of home and family being supported by a very lucky house, the 11th house. And actually, Jupiter is in its joy in the 11th house as well. Um, so if we're looking at Venus, so Venus is in your house of home, bringing harmony. Um, Venus in Sagittarius is very passionate. It wants to explore. It wants to create or find new aspects to relationships. It's looking for emotional freedom as well, new and exciting things. And you've also got Mercury here. So Mercury is very open, direct, and honest, wanting to debate or talk about sort of higher order topics. So not mundane topics. So yeah, it's a wonderful time for your home and family with new beginnings. Just be aware that Venus does when this moon seeds is in a bit of a tight or is in a square to Saturn. So you might find, and Saturn is in your house of committed relationships, so there might be a bit of a tightening, restrictive feeling to relationships. Saturn can also make you feel a little bit, question your, can hit your self-esteem a little bit, question how lovable you are and those things. So don't let that get you down. That's only temporary. But if we're looking then forwards to the next couple of days, Venus moves into an applying square to Neptune as well. And Neptune is very much about ideals, that dreamy desire for connection to people in the ethereal realms, the connection to the collective, that real feeling of unity that we get. Interestingly, you have had Neptune and Saturn sitting in your seventh house for quite some time. Obviously, Neptune has been moving through there since 2011. Saturn certainly in and out, but mostly there for at least 2 and a bit years. So, this might have been bringing a real focus on your committed relationships. On a very foundational level, whether or not you're in a committed relationship, this is really asking you to look at your relationship between, could be a relationship between yourself and other, especially since you have the South Node and the North Node sitting in this first house, 7th house axes. You may have found that, Neptune has been creating sort of over idealistic expectations in partnerships. Neptune can obviously be nebulous and can dissolve boundaries. So there might have been some aspects to relationships where perhaps you didn't have healthy boundaries, or that you had a sense of losing yourself in relationships, or that sense of who you are yourself just merging with the other person that you are in that relationship with. And then you've had Saturn come in the last few years and really perhaps drag you back to reality and create some harsh lessons in terms of being disillusioned in how being disillusioned or disappointed in some of those relationships. Saturn being the hard taskmaster may have brought some difficult lessons in terms of responsibility and boundaries. So really, I guess the gift of these two planets is that hopefully once they leave in February of next year, you'll have a better balance between, who you are, how you relate to others, and in relationships, being able to hold your sense of self, having healthy boundaries, holding on to your own sense of responsibility within relationships, and not putting people on a pedestal either. So ultimately a bit of a gift that will put you in good stead if you face this with an open heart and an open mind as well. Another thing to note is that Mars has moved into your 5th house. So your 5th house of pleasure, and this is the house of really knowing who you are and knowing what you enjoy and really expressing your truest self. It's the house of pleasure. It's the house of children and creativity. So with Mars here, there could be, well, Mars traditionally is a planet that can bring cutting, severing, destruction, violence. I'm not saying that that's what it's bringing to your 5th house, but Saturn here is exalted in Capricorn, so it's actually in its most constructive sort of expression. And Mars here can be really utilized to drive passion, to have commitment, resilience, drive, persistence, to build something, especially in Capricorn. So this is a very good time to really look at who you are, what you enjoy, what it is that you want to create that makes you happy, in terms of building something solid. It could be with your children as well. Just a note here that sometimes Mars, depending on where your personal planets are, can also sort of drive addiction a little bit in the 5th house, because it can be like overindulgence and pleasure. So just something to watch especially over the holiday season. But really, if you marshal the Martian energy in a sort of aware and responsible way, you can actually really achieve a lot of things with Mars in your 5th house. The other thing I just wanted to draw your attention to as well is that you've had Uranus traversing or moving through your 9th house for some time now. And, Uranus is the great awakener. Uranus just breaks up stuff that has been stuck. So if you've been in a rut or you've fossilized in certain areas, Uranus will just come along. And if you don't make some of these changes yourself to realign yourself to, the right path for you, then sometimes Uranus can sort of create events that sort of force you to make those changes. it's coming to the end of its time in Taurus, and it will be leaving in July of next year. So you might have found that, during its 8 to 9 year travels through your ninth house of Taurus, that it's really been trying to break up any sort of fixity, especially with Taurus. Taurus is an earth sign. It likes stability. It doesn't like change. Okay. So Uranus moving through here has really been, um, bringing new ideas, innovation, sudden downloads, breakthroughs, rebellion in areas related to your worldview, your philosophy, your belief system, your higher thinking, your spirituality, your religion. So, um, as I said, this is coming to an end so soon next year. So, be sure to take the opportunity to make changes where you feel stuck and things that are not working for you anymore. Because otherwise Uranus will come in and, create the change in a more dramatic way itself. So just something to be aware of too. And then really by that time, you'll have all the outer planets by end of July, all the outer planets will be in new signs, which is a really big change for all of us. It has not happened for, a very, very long time. And so it really signals a new era for all of us, both personally and in the collective as well. So just to sum up, really, Virgo, it's all about home, family, the home, her hearth, I should say. Um, it's about your living environment, the people that you share your home with, it's with your family. So some new beginnings there, really ruled by your aspirations and the people as well, or connected to the aspirations and the people that you socialize with Jupiter in the 11th house. And some real big changes in terms of understanding yourself and how you relate to others, and ensuring that you have healthy boundaries and that you know yourself better, and that you enter into relationships with a more realistic and grounded, vision or understanding of who that person is, and to avoid putting them on a pedestal, basically. But it's all very positive with Jupiter there. So good luck with the rest of December, Virgo, and I hope you have a good beginning to the new year. Okay, so Libra, this new moon is happening in your third house. So the third house is the joy of the moon, which is fantastic because that's where this new moon is happening. And the third house really represents the sort of, some people call it the fishbowl of our lives, so it's our local environment, okay? And so this new moon is really representing new beginnings, so closure and then new beginnings of aspects in your local surroundings and your local environment. So we're looking at expansion and changes, new beginnings in your local community, short trips, siblings, your day-to-day workings of your mind, new possible spiritual rituals, and basically communication and how you reach out to people. So this could mean meeting new people, visiting siblings, new places, discovering a new shop in your local area, finding, I don't know, starting a new post or blog, or some sort of creative or communicative avenue, sorry. And this house is ruled by an exalted Jupiter, which is sitting in your 10th house of career. So if we're looking at, so Jupiter is bringing blessings from the 10th house, and I'll discuss that in a moment. And so if we go back to the sort of essence of Sagittarius, um, this is about exploring new horizons. It is about being adventurous. It is about new beliefs and learning, integrity. And that's really what the Jupiter brings as well. So Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius. It's exalted here in Cancer in your 10th house. So really there is a link here as well to some of the new changes and beginnings that start in your third house. Um, And there is a connection to your public reputation, your career, your public actions as well. And Jupiter is very much related to your belief system. So there's an expansion here in terms of your career. It's related to teaching, to learning, to ethics, to integrity as well. And when we consider that it is in Cancer exalted and it's actually currently moving retrograde, it's really re-examining your career and whether it reflects some of those sort of Cancerian values of nurturing and protection and loved ones and family. And is your current position in your job allowing you to express or fulfill those aspects of your Cancer 10th house? And also in terms of Jupiter, if we're looking at your belief system, is it able to operate within this job role or within this career that you've built? And so I think Jupiter, what do you call it, retrograding here is really asking you to reflect on these things. Ultimately, it'll bring expansion. That could mean possibly change, but most likely some sort of expansion within your role. And also, if we go back to that third house here, where's my little pointer? That third house here, it's the joy of the moon, but also there's benefic qualities coming not only from the support from Jupiter in your 10th house, but also you've got Venus here. So Venus is really bringing harmony into relationships here. And Venus, particularly in Sagittarius, is adventurous. Venus is passionate. Venus is freedom loving. She's not into the mundane or the boring. She's looking for newness, freshness, new ideas. Sitting here with the moon in particular, it can really put a focus on relationships, definitely with siblings, but I think particularly with women as well. Just a note that when this new moon seeds on the 20th or 19th, depending on where you are, Venus is in a tense aspect to Saturn in your 6th house. So there may be that feeling of limitation within relationships, or internally there could be a sense of perhaps not feeling lovable or loved. This won't last for too long. It's a bit of a temporary aspect, but it's definitely something that may come to light. Relationships with mothers as well, certainly with Venus and the moon there. But I would say that, any difficulties in these areas are ultimately supported for a good outcome by Jupiter exalted here in the 10th. Venus then also moves into a square to Neptune. And so Neptune as well, sitting right next to or co-present with Saturn in your 6th house, can also create this sense of, really desiring that higher level connection and communion with others. And really being idealistic and dreamy. The thing with Neptune, especially being in a square to Venus, is that it can cause sort of a nebulousness or a bit of a fog, a bit of illusion in certain areas, or, it can cause you to be over idealistic. So in that sense, that kind of longing or idealism can actually be checked by Saturn, which will create limits, structure. It can cause, disappointment. It can bring responsibility into the mix as well. So it can be a bit of a dampener on that Neptunian dream. However, again, that you can see that Neptune and Saturn are actually in a trine to Neptune as well. So ultimately, sort of all these things are leading back to that exalted Neptune in your 10th house of, public actions and career. And so that Neptune is softening some of these realizations or perhaps disappointments of being more realistic in terms of these relationships and perhaps restructuring them in terms of your boundaries, expectations, and give and take, and what that involves. This is probably a good time to have a look at Neptune and Saturn on their own also. They have been traveling through your sixth house for some time. So Neptune since 2011, and Saturn for, just over 2 years. They have left Pisces and they have come back again. But, in these sort of watery aspects of Pisces, it's a very emotional sign. And Neptune, again, if we're looking at the sixth house, this is really what represents, or you know, the themes of the sixth house are sort of the day-to-day drudgery, the responsibilities that you have. It's your life admin, it's paying bills, it's going shopping, it's cleaning a house. It is also co-workers as well. So it can be a sense of there can be like some conflicts with co-workers, a situation at work, and it also rules your sixth house, which is traditionally physical ailments, disease, illness, and can be accidents as well. So it all sounds very depressing. Obviously, these are all possible aspects of everybody's life. And I don't want you to be worried to think that, oh no, I'm going to get sick or anything like this. But I think certainly in the more modern, these are things that we can't avoid in life, or, oftentimes. So, but what we can do is to try and buffer and support our well-being. So, in the modern interpretation of the sixth house, it's all about setting up very healthy routines that are sustainable, that are well structured. It's about looking after our health, eating well, so good diet, good physical regime, getting some exercise in there as well. So in that sense, Saturn and Venus have really been restructuring this sixth house. And hopefully, you're learning to sort of balance that sense of desire for connection with, the day-to-day restrictions, responsibilities, and structures that we all operate under. So this is also really echoed by having the north and the south nodes across your 12th and 6th house axis as well. So if we look at your Pisces house here, you can see that you have the north node sitting here. So north node really leading to new areas of learning, expansion. It can be excess as well. In terms of those sixth house topics, I'll just mention pets can be in there as well. So a real restructuring of your day-to-day life, how you support your health, your well-being, and all those sort of drudgery, duty-bound aspects of our life. But also you've got the South Node sitting in your 12th house. So this is the house of, traditionally it was called the house of bad spirit. And really these are, it's the joy of Mars, basically. Again, we all have this house somewhere in our chart. And so with the South Node here, there's been a lot about letting go of aspects of our subconscious that undermine us, that lead us to actions of self-undoing. It can be attachments or traumas from the past. It can be depression, a sense of isolation, all the things that we generally don't feel comfortable looking at. I like to think of it as the things that we keep in our basement. We shut the door and we go, oh, I don't want to look in there. This is really about turning the lights on in the basement and sorting through that stuff. It's not very comfortable. It's not certainly subjectively a fun thing to do, but it's certainly something that's going to put you in good stead for the future and for your well-being and your sense of self. So it's a great time to be, you know, sorting through this by using, I don't know, spiritual, consistent and dedicated spiritual practice. It can be through meditation. It can be through professional counseling as well. Because oftentimes once we are aware of these things and how they operate in the shadows, it really helps us to take the power away from them and to gain more control over our lives in sense of our direction, but also very much so in terms of our mental and emotional well-being. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that you've had Uranus moving through your eighth house for quite a while as well. So we have Uranus, the awakener. Um, Uranus is rebellious. It is an innovator. It is a revolutionary. Uranus represents sudden events, unexpected events, lightning, electricity, you know, uh, brilliant insights of genius or new ideas. And so the function of Uranus really is it moves through a part of your chart, and it really is there to break apart anything that has what do you call it, cemented or gets gotten stuck, aspects of our life. Sometimes that can happen where routines or aspects of our life just get solidified, and it's not allowing us to move in the direction that our soul wants to. And so Uranus will come in and really invite sort of changes in these areas. And it's one of, oftentimes if we ignore the calling of Uranus for change, it can be that, Uranus just creates some sudden event that forces us to reckon with a need for change when things have gone stale. So Uranus has been in your eighth house now for going on almost 9 years. And really, the eighth house is all about it's about our karmic connections and contracts. So what we owe other people, what they owe us. So that can be karmically, emotionally, but it can also be financially as well. So this house also rules shared finances. So that can be with a spouse, with a family. It can be debts, it can be investments, it can be taxes, all of those fun things. So it is quite a heavy house. And, with those heavy topics, the eighth house is also associated with anxiety and actually also so death. So um not to get spooked, I've had Saturn moving through my eighth house now for 2.5 years. So most often, death is a figurative death, meaning endings. So Uranus is almost done moving through your eighth house, and it will be in your ninth house, end of July next year. And when it does so, that will really mark the beginning of a new era, because at that point, all of the outer big planets, so we're talking about Uranus, Pluto, Neptune, um, and including Saturn as well, although it's not considered an outer planet, uh, they will all have moved into new signs. So that is a really big deal. It's a big change for everybody in terms of, personally, but also in the collective. It's a big paradigm shift. Um, yeah, so I think, oh yeah, just another note here that you have Mars has moved into your fourth house. So Mars in Sagittarius, Mars in Capricorn is exalted, which is fantastic. And so, um, you know, Mars here is more constructive than usual in the Capricorn, earthy material world. It's very much about building enduring structures. It's about perseverance. It's about strategy. It's about not giving up. So this is a really great opportunity to build something new within your fourth house of home, family, ancestry, family, property. It's basically your most private aspects as well, your sanctuary at home. Um, Obviously, Mars is considered a malefic planet. So Mars is traditionally known with, you know, destroying, cutting up, severing. So there is obviously, Mars is not always subjectively positive. But here it gives you the opportunity to have that drive and that ambition and that sort of push to get something done, to get changes put in place that are going to be lasting. Um, so the moon will actually move slowly, about 12 hours afterwards. The moon will move into a conjunction with Mars in your fourth house. So just watch out for the fact that there could be a kind of tension, or you might have your patience tested. You might feel a bit more argumentative than usual, just for a very brief time after the moon moves over Mars. So I think that's what I really wanted to say. I just wanted to So just to highlight the key aspects for you are really your immediate neighborhood, your community, the third house of your mind, your communication, your siblings. Um, you know, it's about really asking you to explore your neighborhood with fresh eyes. So, being adventurous, being truthful and open and direct in how you communicate, um, you know, trying to embody your belief system, your ideals, both publicly in your career house, making sure that the job that you have and the career you've chosen allows for or nurtures your belief systems. Um, and also that you also, honor that drive for um, adventure and freedom and change that, Sagittarius brings up in your third house as well. Um, so I hope that helps, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of December. Thank you. Okay, let's move to Scorpio. So Scorpio, this new moon is happening in your second house. The second house, your house of material resources and finances. This is really the house of or concerned with how you support yourself, how you maintain your life, how you support your well-being, how you make your money. Um, so, this new beginning, so the new moon is really signifying closure and new beginnings in these areas. So it's a really good time, especially with the Sagittarian themes of ethics, integrity, freedom, adventure, justice. It's a good time to really have a look at your belief system and to look at whether the second house allows you those aspects of adventure and freedom. Are you enthused about how you make your money? What is your relationship to material things? Is it weighing you down? Are you over attached to them? Um, and this new moon in your second house is being ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is currently sitting in your ninth house, which is a really interesting alignment because obviously in your ninth house, this is called the joy of the sun, and this is really concerned with philosophy and the higher mind, basically. So higher learning, travel to foreign lands and cultures. Um, having greater meaning in your life, integrity, religion, philosophy. It can be law as well. And obviously Jupiter is related to teaching and learning as well. So, there's a real link here to really ask yourself whether, your belief system and how you see the world, your thirst for adventure, um, or knowledge, is it being satisfied currently by your second house of your material resources and how you make your money, basically, how you support yourself and your livelihood. And interestingly here too, you've got you've got Venus sitting in here as well. So Venus brings enthusiasm and passion as well. Venus, when this new moon first seeds, is in a square to Saturn in your fifth house. So look for there could be a bit of a dampening during this time. That effect should disappear on the 23rd. So there could be a real perhaps a dampening or a sense of restriction or responsibility. And that's coming from your fifth house. And your fifth house is really about, being your authentic self and expressing your authentic self and doing things that are creative or that bring you pleasure. It's the house of children as well. So, there may be a sense or a fear of if I make changes in my livelihood or how I make my money, how is that going to affect my children or my family potentially? Um, you know, is my second house of how I support myself, does it reflect my authentic self and also my creativity and how I want to express myself as well? Um, so Venus there, and then Venus basically after that, moves into an applying square to Neptune. And so Neptune here is asking you, or Neptune is bringing this real ethereal quality to Venus, a real idealistic longing for communion, for beauty, for dreaming, it's a dreamy quality. Um, it's like wanting to connect with everybody in a real sort of ethereal quality. It's very idealistic. There will be a real sense of beauty and compassion as well. But at the same time, Neptune can be the also represent illusion and addiction and a loss of boundaries and confusion. Um, and so, just be sure to check yourself in terms of those. Um, that Venus desire, that it is realistic in some sense. But luckily you have, as I said, Saturn, which is co-present with Neptune in your fifth house. And so they've been traveling through there for quite some time, Neptune since 2011, and Saturn for at least, I don't know, about 2.5 years. They went into Aries, they came back again. So it's kind of like the last hurrah for them here, really asking you to reflect on the lessons that you've learned from them moving through your fifth house in terms of, perhaps being idealizing certain dreams or aspects of pleasure or creativity. It can be addiction as well with Neptune, especially in the fifth house of pleasure. And Saturn checking it and saying, well, are you being realistic? Have you put, is that an unrealistic dream? Do you need to come back to earth? Do you need to build solid foundations? So be patient and work for this. So really their travel through your fifth house is about, learning to balance these two aspects in terms of being able to present yourself and you express yourself and your creativity and the things that bring you pleasure in a more balanced way. And really, as well, you've had the North Node sitting in here as well. So the North Node can, really inflate things that are sitting in there as well. So that those lessons could have really been brought to the fore. And at the same time, you've got the South Node sitting in your 11th house of social circle relationship, friends, relationships, allies, mentors, and also your hopes and dreams and aspirations. So there really could have been a bit of a letting go in this 11th house area. Perhaps you've been reflecting on or discovering that perhaps certain social circles no longer reflect who you are or your belief system or your ideals. So there may have been some changes here or some letting go, or perhaps a dream that you've held for a long time has needed to be amended or altered, or perhaps you've had to let go of it altogether. Okay, so what else are we looking at here? So if we also have a look at Mercury, so Mercury is also in that house with the new moon. Mercury here is very adventurous, it's very bold, it's very truthful, it's concerned with more lofty topics of higher learning, the world politics, spiritual concerns, philosophy. And so again, that's bringing that idea of, is your job reflecting these aspects and giving you that satisfaction and reflecting your belief system as well? So Mars, interestingly, Mars is exalted and has moved into your third house. So Mars is exalted in Capricorn. And so with Capricorn here, you obviously have a very sort of a more constructive Mars, a Mars that is willing to persevere, to be more strategic, to build something for the future, which is very much the concern of Capricorn. And in the third house, this is really looking at your local community, your neighbors. It's concerned with your siblings and your early childhood learning. It's your mind and the patterns of your mind day to day, and it's also your communication as well. So with Mars here, if it's depending on where your personal planets are, Mars can be harnessed quite constructively to really build something new within that environment. Just note that Mars, again, if not channeled constructively, can lead to sort of arguments and the cutting off of relationships and things like that. So just be aware that Mars obviously is very strong, and to avoid any arguments with neighbors or local people, review whether it's worth it or not to stand your ground. But I think here with Mars exalted, it's really, and it's in an opposition to Jupiter as well. So even though it's an opposition, it's still opposite a very benefic planet. So I think that this can be harnessed to some really good effect to achieve your goals. And also when you have you've got an exalted Mars, this Mars obviously is your first house ruler of Scorpio. So you're going to feel extra drive, extra passion, extra ambition, extra energy at the moment. And so again, just make sure to channel that well and constructively, not to be overbearing or too dominant with people. You may have a little bit of trouble with authority around that time, so just bear that in mind as well. And then also Mars rules your sixth house of daily living and your day-to-day routines. And so you might find that you have extra energy in terms of getting those sort of more mundane aspects of life done, that you're more driven to move into a really constructive and supportive daily routine and physical health, a routine that, dietary and exercise regime that can really support you during this time. And just another note too, that you've had Uranus moving through your seventh house of committed relationships for some time now. It's, I'd say, almost 9 years, and Uranus went out of your Taurus house, but it's since returned for its final visit. It's still retrograde during this lunation, but it will be turning direct. And eventually leaving Taurus and moving into Gemini, July of 2026. So Uranus here has been shaking up basically your seventh house. So Uranus is the great awakener. Uranus basically blows away anything that's become stale or fossilized and is not working for you anymore. It's the great awakener. It brings freedom and rebellion and revolution and sudden events, unexpected events, innovation, brilliant insights, genius. It's very different as well. So Uranus represents the eccentric. So during this time, it could have really changed your, committed relationships. On the one hand, it could really have asked you to sort of create new aspects to your relationship or to bring some newness to a committed relationship that really brings interest and fun and something different in there again. For those relationships that were not able to sort of move with that urge for freedom or newness, or perhaps there could have been an ending of some relationships as well. But ultimately, you may have met somebody or been attracted to somebody who's a little bit different, a little bit eccentric as well. But Uranus generally cannot be denied. So if you ignore Uranus, it tends to create some sort of lightning bolt event that forces you to change. So it'll be very interesting to, to hear about how how Uranus has affected your seventh house, basically. And so when we sum all this up, I guess what we're looking at is, looking at your second house, is your livelihood, does it feed your soul and your wallet? Obviously, we all need money. Does it add or bring meaning to your life? You know, on a sort of, if we're looking at possible, there's obviously so many different delineations that we could go into, but, look for changes in your livelihood, new beginnings in how you support yourself. There could be an urge for freedom or change here. Look for a link to foreign travels, higher learning, new outlook on life, and also some sort of changes in terms of, your creative house, your children, your pleasure-seeking activities, your leisure activities, and all of those things as well. All right. Well, I hope you have a good rest of December, and I look forward to seeing you next time. All right. Thank you, Scorpio. Sagittarius. So this new moon is happening in your first house. So this is all about you. So your first house is the helm. This house, it really represents you. It represents your body, your mind, your disposition, your character, your appearance, everything basically. So when we're looking at a new moon in this area, we are looking at changes to you both internally and in externally in your identity. It can be your values as well. And so from here, we're seeing new beginnings in the way that you're steering your ship, the way that you're searching for meaning, for truth. And especially with that Sagittarius first house, which is you, there's that real drive for freedom, for adventure, there's optimism, there's passion. So yeah, here we see the expansion not only of yourself and your beliefs, but your confidence as well. And if we look at the first house, this is really also busy because it's got the sun, moon, obviously in a conjunction, but it's got Venus and Mercury as well sitting in your sign. And this first house where the new moon is happening is ruled by Jupiter. So Jupiter is your ruler and is the ruler of Sagittarius, and it is sitting in your eighth house in Cancer, exalted. So when a planet is exalted, it brings honor, it brings success, it's in its very best expression, basically. Uh, so in the eighth house, the eighth house is the house of karmic contracts, it's karmic entanglements. It is also, boundaries, your give and take that you have with people in your life. And also, it can be shared finances, it can be debt, it can be taxes, investments. So this is really about, finding wisdom, which is very Jupiterian, finding wisdom in your shared resources and your karmic connections, and making them work for you. So basically, the focus for the Cancer is nurturing and protection. So nurturing those connections, those entanglements, making sure that you balance or redraw those boundaries in a way that works for you as well. Obviously, with the eighth house, this could be shared connections and resources that we have with family or with a spouse. And so obviously there's an element of responsibility there as well. This can also be, for example, if you're in a strata, as somebody I know, this can be the strata money that you share with other apartments. So it can also be that kind of thing as well. So this new moon is really connected to those kind of commitments that you have, but also being redrawn in terms of your own expansion and the person that you are, becoming and moving towards. Also, you've got Venus Venus in your first house as well. And so Venus here, it's a wonderful placement to have Venus in your first house. You'll find that you're a lot more, you're giving off a lot more sort of attraction and beauty. People will be attracted to you. But just to note that Venus is actually in a square to, and I'll point this out here, Venus is in a square to Saturn for the first few days, coming in or as the new moon seeds. That will continue on till the 23rd. And so there may be some sort of restriction in your self-expression with Saturn being in the fourth house. There could be some sort of limitations that you're feeling in your own growth and expansion, in terms of your home situation, your family, the people that you live with. It can be family karma or family sort of ancestral karma as well. But also it could be internal as well. So there could be perhaps a few bit of doubt about, your attractiveness, your lovability. It could even hit your self-esteem a little bit. But hopefully, I don't think this will be a very long-lasting effect. You've got Jupiter really providing that, Jupiter providing its blessings for this. So this is just a temporary situation that you just need to work through. And then Venus basically goes into a square, into an applying square with Neptune here as well. So with Neptune here, Venus will be very idealized, dreamy, looking for that sort of divine, ethereal connection to the collective, to other people, um, and really seeking compassion and beauty. Just watch for, because it is a square, Neptune can sometimes be a little bit deceptive, create illusions, over idealism, that kind of thing as well. Interestingly, you've had that Venus and the Saturn moving through your fourth house for several years. So Neptune, I think it's since 2011, and Saturn for about 2.5 years. They both left your fourth house of Pisces and moved into Aries for a little while. Then they came back again, and now they're both moving direct, and they will both meet in your Aries fifth house on February the 14th, and not to return for quite some time. So, you probably had a quite a bit of a restructure in your home and living situation. So when we're looking at, uh, having Venus there, there'll be a real drive for you to make your home a sanctuary, to really have high hopes and ideals for making your house beautiful, a place where it really supports connection and love. Um, and then you've had Saturn there sort of bringing reality in, responsibilities, limits, roadblocks. It could be as simple and mundane as perhaps you've been trying to renovate the house and you've come across sort of, I don't know, council legislation or some financial difficulties. But either way, finding a way through, the ultimate lesson here with Saturn and Neptune is to find a balance between that beautiful ideal and dream that you have, and making sure that it's grounded in reality and uh, a structure that can support your ideals or your dreams long term. So that's in your fourth house. The other thing I just wanted to mention is Mars. So Mars is exalted during this new moon. Mars here, it's been pushed over a little bit, but so Mars is sitting in your second house here. It's only just fitting in here. So Mars has moved into your Capricorn second house. So having a Capricorn second house means that in terms of your resources and your finances, they tend to be very, very important for Capricorn. Capricorn is an earth sign. It's very attached to material security. Having Mars here is a wonderful thing. Mars is actually exalted in the sign of Capricorn. So, Mars is in its best expression, and it's really an ideal time to achieve your goals, work hard. Mars here is channeled, so often its destructive tendencies are channeled here into a more sort of structured, a more building, constructive type energy. It gives you perseverance, it gives you the drive, it gives you the strategy. So, a wonderful time if you're looking at starting a business, or if you're wanting to, really make changes in the way that you make your money, the way that you support yourself. This is a really wonderful time to make these changes in the next, 4 to 5 weeks. The other thing I wanted to mention is you've got your nodes. So the North Node and the South Node are currently moving through your 10th house and your fourth house. So this is a real, when the nodes are moving through, the nodes of the moon are moving through houses or the axes of houses, because they're always opposite each other. They can really bring changes to these areas. So you've got your South Node in your 10th house of Virgo, and this is really looking at, which areas do you need to potentially release to become to sort of view in a more spiritual way. How is the balance between your work house and your family and living situation? So if that is out of balance, you may need to restructure, rebalance the amount of time that you and energy resources that you spend on your career, on your public life, and balance it with, the money or the resources, the time that you're spending with your home situation, with your family potentially. Um, And so you've got your North Node sitting in your fourth house. So there could be new areas for growth here as well. With the North Node sitting near Saturn, there could have been a real sort of greater expressions of obstacles. But really, again, with having, Jupiter here in a sextile here and a trine, there is really wonderful support for ultimate, blessings and expansion in these areas. Uranus, just a quick note, Uranus has been moving through your sixth house for, almost 9 years now. And it did leave for a little while into Gemini. It came back again. It's still retrograde at the time of this lunation. But Uranus is the great awakener. Uranus brings change. It basically just blows away anything that's become stale or concretized, that's not working for you anymore. So it's the great awakener, it's the liberator, it's the innovator, it's rebellious. It brings lightning bolts of insight. And genius, it's the eccentric. So, having it move through your sixth house, you probably have found that there's been some really big changes in the last 8 to 9 years in terms of your day-to-day living routine. So the sixth house really represents, your chores, your day-to-day living, your life admin. In the old Hellenistic tradition, it was really about sort of slavery and drudgery, the things that we have to do, that we have no choice, basically. And so in a more sort of modern reframing, it's really about setting up healthy routines that support the rest of your life, and also routines that for not only the admin, but like shopping and paying bills, all those things, but also really your health, because the sixth house traditionally represents illness, accidents, and any sort of physical ailments. So having Uranus here, it's really about putting in place routines that work for you, that allow you to be in your best health. Okay. And it's just about to leave. So hopefully by the time Uranus leaves your sixth house, which will be in July, end of July, you'll have that part of your life sort of refreshed and in a good place to support the rest of your life. Um, okay, so if we put all this together, what we're really looking at, Sagittarius, is some big changes, new beginnings in you, with the Sagittarius and the nature of Sagittarius being, uh, you know, uh, adventurous, looking for newness. It loves foreign things. It loves higher learning. It loves um, it loves to debate and share information, usually sort of more larger worldview information and wisdom rather than more sort of mundane topics or day-to-day topics. So this is a real change or growth in your belief system, in how you see yourself. And obviously, as we know, that ripples out to every other aspect of our life. So very auspicious time for you, Sagittarius, especially with Jupiter being exalted in your eighth house. So you're going to put those sort of areas in your life where you have duties, expectations, shared resources, responsibilities with others. Hopefully that you can rebalance them in a way that is sustainable to you. And you've got Jupiter there really bringing blessings to this area. And then also you've got the sort of lessons from Neptune and Saturn in your house of home, um, really saying that you will get support ultimately from these areas, even though there's been some challenges. But with the fourth house being in a trine to Jupiter in your eighth house, there are likely to be some really good outcomes in the final outcome. So exciting times. So I wish you all the best, Sagittarius, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the year. Okay, so we are moving to Capricorn. So, Capricorn, this new moon happens in your 12th house. This is the house which was called the Joy of Saturn by ancient astrologers. And it is quite a challenging house, and I'll explain why in a moment, but it's also a house of great reward as well. So the 12th house is the house. I like to think of it, it's like the basement. Okay. So if you're lucky enough to have a house big enough for a basement, this is the basement. You throw things down in the basement and you probably haven't looked at it for a while. There's probably cobwebs. You can't remember what's down there anymore. And the thought of going down and sorting out your basement is like, oh, no, I don't want to know what's down there. I don't want to clean up. Maybe there's rats and stuff down there. Um, so it's really represents your subconscious mind. It's the house of bad spirit, is what the ancients used to call it, and we all have this house. Um, so really, this house is the house. It's a very difficult house, and we often call it the house of self-undoing. The reason for this, it sits directly beside our first house. Our first house is the helm of our ship, and we say in ancient astrology or Hellenistic astrology that houses that are at certain angles, especially the ones where the first house does not have a direct line of sight to that house, are considered sort of houses in aversion. Basically, they're hidden and they're not easily observable for us. So the 12th house basically is related to our unconscious patterns, our past sorrows, that could be traumas, it could be feelings of isolation. It's related to hospitals and institutions and prison. And it's also related to our hidden enemies as well. But, you know, that sounds very depressing. It's not all in a more sort of positive light. You know, it is really the house of sort of spiritual transcendence. Because when we think about it, we all have difficult times in our life, some of us more than others. But really, if we start working through some of these more hidden, wounded aspects of ourselves, ultimately, any suffering that we go through makes us stronger, okay, and really builds wisdom. So the challenge with having a new moon here is there's a new beginning in these aspects of yourself to really shine a light on, what is down in your basement. Get your gloves on, turn the lights on, go down and sort it out. So, and it takes a lot of courage as well. All right. So, this lunation is a call to really, courageously shine a light on the depths of your 12th house, um, via meditation, via, a disciplined sort of spiritual ritual, or through psychotherapy, um, and really a restorative lifestyle, and really reclaiming your power. Because, we know that when we have things operating in the dark, they have more power. And if we don't sort out or have a look at the things that are in our 12th house, they can often tend to operate from our subconscious and express themselves throughout our life, and thereby sort of, condemning us into sort of patterns that we keep repeating. So this path through the 12th house is not easy, and it demands sort of courage and stoicism. But the rewards are an immense sort of spiritual strength or fortitude and wisdom. Um, and, you have a couple of other aspects that are supporting this time as well. So, first of all, you've got the ruler of this lunation and the ruler of Sagittarius, your 12th house, being Jupiter. And Jupiter is sitting in your 7th house. And Jupiter is exalted there because it's in Cancer. And it's currently retrograding, and it's been there since June, and it will be there for some time into the new year. So, what this really says to me is, first of all, you have Jupiterian blessings, you have Jupiterian optimism and support for expansion. But also with a link to the 7th house, I think that there is a really positive connection to a spouse or a committed partner. It could be a business partner, even. So somebody in your life that is there connected to your 12th house in some way. Perhaps they're providing really great support, counseling, through your time, going through some of those more difficult 12th house topics. So I would say as well that, look for support from your partner. And ultimately, too, this could really bring great expansion to your partnership and ultimately strengthen it as well. The other thing that you have is you've got Venus as well sitting in your you've got Venus sitting in your uh 12th house as well. Sorry, I've just lost my screen. You've got Venus sitting in your 12th house as well. So that is fantastic. And Venus is bringing we call her she's also a benefic. So she's bringing blessings and harmony in her own way. And really trying to soften and harmonize your relationship, not just with others, but also with yourself as well. Initially, Venus does come up against, when that lunation happens, she is in a square to your, I'll just show this here, to Saturn sitting in your third house. So this can create some blocks in communication with people. It can create sort of responsibilities or duties or sort of, obstacles that you need to overcome. I would also say that with, Venus being in the 12th house, this could be some feelings of inadequacy, not being lovable, or perhaps not being deserving of love. But ultimately, I think that, this is a temporary transit. It finishes on about the 23rd, 24th. And not to forget that you have beautiful Jupiter overseeing this new moon. And then Venus basically moves into a square after the lunation, very shortly after with Neptune. And Neptune is the planet of well, it represents the ocean. It's boundaryless. It's at its higher expression. It's about universal love and compassion and connection to the collective. It's about beauty, creativity, idealistic visions, dreaminess, and it's really beautiful. But just to be careful, Venus is in a square to that Neptune. So that can be, or that is a sort of an alignment of tension. So just be aware of some of the shadow aspects with Neptune, and that can be sort of being over idealistic, being lost in an idealistic cloud, and it can create fogginess. And so Neptune can also be associated with wanting to escape, being, somebody deceiving you, being, it can also be addiction as well. So escapism, addiction, and a loss of boundaries as well. So just to be aware of that. Luckily, I think having Saturn and Neptune together in your third house, there's a real balance between Neptune longing for that kind of illusory, connection and vision and idealism, and Saturn really grounding that and saying, hey, you might need to be a bit more realistic, or you need to do some hard work to achieve these goals. Okay. And you've also got Mercury sitting in that 12th house as well. So again, very good for open communication. Mercury here is very interested in talking about higher order things, religion, spirituality, philosophy. Again, this is a wonderful time to be, seeking counsel with others, professional or otherwise, or even spiritual, finding relief in sort of spiritual connections and learning as well. Okay, what else did I want to mention? Okay, the other thing that's really standing out here is the fact that you have Mars, which has just moved into your first house. So this is a very auspicious time for Mars and for you being in your first house, because your first house is really your home. It's like you standing with the rudder in your hands, you're steering your ship, your life, basically. And the first house represents you, your body, your mind, your constitution, your characteristics, your demeanor, everything that you show to the world as well. And so having Mars here, and Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So Mars loves being in Capricorn. We say that a planet is exalted in it's in one of its most honorable sort of expressions. And Mars here in Capricorn is strong and unusually constructive. So this is a wonderful time. You're going to find that you have very high levels of energy. You'll be very willful. You have perseverance. You'll be more strategic. Um, you'll be bolder, more assertive as well. So this is a really fantastic time to get stuff done, because you'll have the impetus, the commitment, and the energy to really see things through. And ultimately, whatever you build, especially in Capricorn, you're really going to see some results from your hard work. Um, so make use of that. Just watch for, sometimes, obviously, Mars can be a little bit ego driven, a little bit dominant. So just to keep one eye on that, that you're not sort of being over dominant with people. Um, okay, what else did I want to mention? Okay, so just coming back to Saturn and Neptune in your third house. Third house is your house of local environs. So local environment, it's your neighborhood, it's your community. It is we say it's also your day-to-day mind as well. It is your communications, that can be communication interpersonally, but it can also be whether you're as part of your job, you're writing a blog, or whether you're doing something online, you're writing a book, any of those things are highlighted here with Saturn and Neptune, and they've probably brought you some lessons here as well. So again, Neptune, big dreams, big aspirations, a longing for beauty and compassion, sitting there with Saturn, and Saturn going, okay, I see your vision, but you need to do the groundwork. You need to fulfill these responsibilities. You need to work hard. And so ultimately, although that can be challenging, they're really setting you up for next year when they both move into your fourth house. So this is a really wonderful time to do the hard work and to build your dreams, basically. And you know that you have Mars in your first house, really giving you that impetus, that drive, that focus. Um, and so, yeah, third house also in focus. The other thing I just wanted to mention briefly is that you have Uranus sitting in your fifth house, and Uranus is almost at the end of your Taurus fifth house. It's about to leave about to, in Uranus time, it's about to leave and move into Gemini, 26th of July next year in 2026. And it's probably been shaking up your fifth house. So your fifth house is your house of self-expression, authenticity, your creativity. It's basically the house of pleasure, what brings you joy, what you enjoy doing. And that can be just personally for leisure time. It can be you're an artist. It can just be gardening. It could be anything that you do that is a real expression of yourself and that brings you pleasure. Children are also included in here. It can also be the house of sort of gambling as well, so taking risks. And taking risks isn't always a bad thing, within, limits. So, Uranus is the great awakener. Okay, so Uranus is rebellious. Uranus breaks up anything that is stale or has concretized. And it basically goes through and breaks things up if they're not true to who you are in your life. So if you've fallen into certain patterns or things that are kind of just gone stale and not working for you, but they feel sort of comfortable, and you think, Uranus is like, nah, we're breaking this up. So Uranus is an innovator. Uranus is eccentric. Uranus has lightning bolts of insight and innovation. And so you probably found that in the last 8 to 9 years that it's been moving through your fifth house, it's really been working on asking you to be more authentic and to really express who you are, to others, to the world, creatively. And Uranus is one of those planets that if you ignore it, often it will just create some sort of lightning bolt event or drama event that basically makes you change course. So that is Uranus. So again, take advantage of that. Uranus is there until the 26th of next year, 26th of July next year. So if, now that you have that courage, that conviction, especially with Mars there, you're doing the hard work in the 12th house to really improve your emotional health and be more aware. This is a great time to really make any of those changes that Uranus has been pushing for in your house of creativity. It could also be unexpected events, unexpected events from your children as well, perhaps a little bit of rebellion, who knows? Um, but yeah. So ultimately, Capricorn, I would say that your key task is to integrate your past to support these new beginnings. So fantastic. Have a lovely rest of December. Okay, so Aquarius, this new moon is happening in your 11th house. This is a very positive house. It's the house where Jupiter rejoices, and it's the house of friends and social networks and groups. It's the house of long-term goals and dreams. It's the house of collective action. This is where you have benefactors and mentors and allies, and basically people that share your values. So look for new beginnings here. You might be meeting new people. You have Venus situated here as well, so you're really going to be attracting people to you at this time. If you are a creator or an artist, this is also about, your audience, which is represented by the 11th house as well. And this house, as I said, is the joy of Jupiter, and Jupiter is currently located in your sixth house. So Jupiter is auspiciously it's exalted in your Cancer sixth house, and so in your sixth house, Cancer here is currently in retrograde, and it's basically revising and setting new foundations for your day-to-day living. So your sixth house is looking at service, your work routines, your day-to-day routines, your life admin, your healthy lifestyle, or ensuring that you have a healthy lifestyle. And so, finding that discipline to have sort of routines in your life that can really support the growth and your aspirations. And so with Jupiter here, the sixth house can also be the house of physical ailments as well, or illnesses. So really Jupiter here bringing healing and better sort of lifestyle routines that support your well-being as well. Also, if we're looking at back to Venus, so Venus initially, it's fantastic. Venus is there in your 11th house, really bringing harmony, attracting new people to you. Venus is looking for adventure, is looking for freedom, and newness. But Venus will initially hit a square to Saturn sitting in your second house of finances and livelihood. So just there might be initially up until the 23rd some restrictions or responsibilities or obstacles to some of the more sort of harmonious aspects of Venus. But then Venus then moves into an applying square to Neptune, which is also sitting in your second house. And with Neptune squared to, with Venus squared to Neptune, what we're looking at here is an expansion of your dreams and your goals. There will be a real a longing for connection with people, to beauty and to compassion. So Venus is in good stead there, and she's also really kept her feet are kept on the ground to that, initial square to Saturn as well. So the other thing, just to focus on that Saturn and Neptune sitting in your second house, because there is a connection here, obviously, with that square, and also the fact that your second house of Pisces is also ruled again by Jupiter sitting on your sixth house of your day-to-day routines and work and health. Um, and so with Jupiter here, we look for expansion in your second house of livelihood and material resources. And if we're looking at, Saturn and Neptune have been in your second house for quite some time. Neptune since 2011, and Saturn probably at least for the last 2 years or so. They did leave briefly and move into your third house in Aries for a while, but they returned, and they will be here. And they will both again leave and meet in Aries on the 26th, on the 14th of February next year. So let's just have a look at some of the sort of changes and transformations that Neptune and Saturn have brought to your second house. So you probably found that Saturn has brought some important lessons in terms of your relationship to your material resources and your finances and how you make a living. It might have, really required you to have patience. There might have been some delays, some restrictions, some obstacles to overcome. Um, but then you've also got Neptune in here as well. And Neptune is really asking you to truly sort of review or clarify what it is that you value. And asking you also, whether your attachments to your possessions is ego driven, really sort of thinking about what is their true worth. So be careful though, because Neptune can sort of bring illusions. So be careful of any sort of disillusion or risky ventures, that you're not deceived by anything. And so if you're making any changes in terms of your finances, make sure that, Neptune is not blurring the lines. But luckily, you've got that Saturn there. So Saturn is really making sure that there is structure to anything that you bring or change within your second house. And making sure that you're, remaining responsible and aware of your commitments as well. So really, ultimately, both of those are trine to Jupiter in your sixth house. So this is really helping to build a more secure and authentic sense of value and resourcefulness, and asking you really to have a dedicated service to those aspects of your life, and really to make sure that you've got those health routines uh, in place that are really going to support you to make your dreams a reality as well. Interestingly, too, you've got the nodes of the moon, which have been sitting in your second and eighth house axis of Pisces and Virgo as well. So when we're looking at the south node or the north node of the moon sitting in your second house of resources, again, there's an aspect of growth here, expansion, but making sure that any sort of growth in your second house is grounded again, and building for your future and your dreams. With the sixth house, with your eighth house, you've got the south node there. So there could be a letting go of eighth house sort of themes in terms of, looking at the so eighth house is basically a house of, you know, karma with people, especially like family or spouse. So it's the house of sort of karmic contracts, what you owe people, what they owe you, your boundaries with them, that give and take. It can be shared resources as well. So money, inheritance, taxes, investments. It tends to be other people's money. So this could be your spouse's money as well. And with the south node here, there's also sort of an aspect of letting go here in some sense as well. So really, ultimately, the nodes, their transit through your second and eighth house is asking you to balance what's yours, what do you share with others, and do you have a healthy relationship in terms of the give and take between those two houses. The other thing I wanted to have a look at is that you've got Mars, and Mars has moved into your 12th house in Capricorn. Um, so Mars in Capricorn is exalted, so that's the good news. The 12th house can be a bit of a challenging house, because the 12th house is traditionally it was called the house of bad spirit, and we all have this house. So it's the parts of our subconscious where we hold on to, it could be sorrows or childhood traumas. It can be feelings of isolation. That house can also represent hospitalizations or institutions or imprisonment. Um, and so it's really about, with the Mars here, you've got an opportunity to really be a bit of a subconscious warrior, to constructively, because Mars is very, unusually constructive in Capricorn. It has persistence, it's got energy, it's got drive. So this is a wonderful time to make any changes in that aspect. So if you're feeling conflict or frustration during this time, it's a really good suggestion that you look inwards first. And one way to really use that Mars energy well in the 12th house is to really direct it towards sort of selfless service or spiritual practice. So if you can, try and let the ego take a bit of a back seat, and try and transform any sort of potential self-sabotage into a sort of a powerful tool for sort of inner purification or spiritual strength. So any sort of difficult areas of our life in our subconscious that we shine a light on at this time, although it's very challenging and it takes courage, the ultimate rewards are sort of spiritual strength and wisdom. And so really take advantage of the fact that Mars is here, exalted to really work through these parts of your psyche. Just another few things that I want to mention. Obviously, you've got Uranus moving through your fourth house as well. And so Uranus will be leaving your fourth house ultimately again for a lot, leaving and won't be returning for a very long time. It's leaving on the 26th of July next year. So it's been moving through your fourth house. Uranus is the awakener. Uranus is rebellious. It's a liberator. So basically, Uranus will move through any part of your life that has become stale or stuck, is not in alignment with, with your true self, or is not your sort of authenticity. And that can happen to all of us sometimes. And so Uranus basically sweeps through that house and creates change, liberates you, I guess. So going through your fourth house, I would suggest fourth house is representing your your most personal space and sanctuary. That can be in a sort of an emotional sense as well, but it's also your living arrangements, your physical, the house that you're living in. It could be ancestral, sort of karma, ancestral lands. So with Uranus moving through here, there might have been some really big changes to over the last 8 to 9 years of your living arrangements, perhaps some new people moving into your house, perhaps some, big changes to your family. But ultimately, again, with Jupiter overseeing, being in a sextile at the moment to your fourth house, is some sort of support and blessings as well for those changes. And ultimately, what Uranus does is it tends to bring changes that ultimately are of benefit to you, even if though they can be a little bit shocking at that time. But if you look back over the last 8 or so years, think about what sort of changes have been happening in your Taurus 8th house. And just a note too that particularly for, the Taurus house, Taurus is very much about grounded stability. It's an earth sign. It really doesn't like change. So, very big deal having Uranus move through here, really sort of like pushing through and enforcing these changes to areas of our lives. Okay. And just the last thing I wanted to note was the fact that, you've got Pluto in your first house. So that's a big deal, Aquarius. Your first house is you. It's the helm. It's you with the rudder in your hand and steering the ship that is you in your life. It represents your body, your character, your mind, what you show to the world, and really, having Pluto in here. It's been there for about a year or so. It ultimately will probably be in Aquarius approximately 20 years or so. So it's a big, long period. We're only at the beginning of it, but by the end of that 20-year period, you'll find that Pluto will have really brought great transformation to your identity and to who you are as well. So just to sum up, I think the focus of new moon here for you is definitely collective action. So new beginnings in your social connections, social circles, new beginnings in sort of group collective activities as well. And so you're really being asked to channel your dreams through group energy to achieve them. At the same time, Mars is asking you to be brave to look through any sort of some subconscious patterns that need to be restructured. And at the same time, you know, Jupiter is blessing everything here, but also asking you to make sure and expand and make sure that your sort of day-to-day routines that support your health and just being able to live an organized life and support yourself is also in place as well. And then lastly, as well, obviously, you know, when we're talking about aspirations and dreams, they're very often connected to our livelihood and how we relate to money. And so with Saturn and Neptune here, and the nodes as well in the second, eighth house, it's really asking you to reassess how you value money, your connection to money, and the balance between that and your karma or commitments and duties to other people that you may share resources with as well. Okay, so ultimately, really some really positive changes coming for you for this new moon in your 11th house. So all the best, Aquarius. So Pisces, this new moon is happening in your 10th house. So the 10th house is a very public house. This is the house of career, reputation, your worldly actions, your public standing. So the moon here, the new moon is really signaling new beginnings in this aspect of your life. Having the moon here as well, it brings a kind of more emotional aspect to your public standing. So you may feel perhaps a little bit exposed, or perhaps, the new beginnings are quite emotionally driven as well. But you've also got the sun here, and the sun is very happy in the 10th house because the sun likes to be the center of attention, it likes to shine. So at this time, you have a very natural energy and drive, which places you in the spotlight. And really, it involves your ego and your ambitions as well. And then you've got this wonderful support from Mercury as well. Mercury in Sagittarius in your 10th house as well, looking for open and honest communication. It supports sort of learning and professional development. And then you've got Venus as well sitting in there. So Venus, attracting people to you. So you're radiating now a lot more sort of attractive energy than usual. And this could also mean that you're attracted to somebody at work or somebody in a position of authority. And so a really wonderful time and a spotlight on your career. And then just to let you know, Venus, though, when this lunation first seeds, Venus is in a sort of brief square that she's coming out of to Saturn, and that's in your first house. So you might feel a little bit of restriction for those couple of days up until about the 23rd. It could be a restriction in terms of your relationships. It could be a bit of self-doubt about a bit of a self-esteem doubts at that time, but it's short-lived. It can also represent some sort of restriction in terms of money, with Venus ruling money as well. So I guess if you're thinking about asking for a raise, maybe wait until after the 23rd. Um, but then Venus moves into a square with Neptune. Okay. And so when Venus moves into a square to Neptune, you're going to be really dreaming big. You're going to have real idealistic aspirations, a real feeling of wanting to bring more compassion and connection into your public or work life. And this is a really wonderful thing. Just to note, because it is a square, that, just watch for any sort of illusions or sort of getting lost with a loss of boundaries or a sense of self. But luckily, Saturn is there to sort of keep Neptune in check as well, which is good news. So this auspicious new moon is also being ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is sitting in a very lucky house for you. So Jupiter is sitting in the fifth house, which is known as the joy of Venus. It rules all things pleasurable. And so with this Jupiter sitting here, it's all about, really expressing your authenticity and being creative, finding the expressions of yourself that really express who you are, that bring you pleasure. And with its link to that 10th house, it's really asking you to bring some of that authenticity, some of that joy, some of that pleasure into your work life as well, into your career. It's also very positive, when we look at Jupiter, which has been transiting your fifth house for some time, this is a house of, well, Jupiter brings blessings and expansion, opportunities. So this is a really joyful time for you on a personal level in terms of perhaps, indulging or really expressing yourself through some sort of painting or creativity or whatever activity it is that you enjoy. It's very positive for children as well. So you might see it could be like a pregnancy, because Jupiter is about expansion, and Cancer is a very watery, fertile sign. So could be an expansion to your family. It could be grandchildren as well, or it could be some really positive changes for your children as well. Perhaps, getting a new job or having some sort of very positive event in their life. So really, ultimately, though, being ruled by Jupiter, this 10th house new moon, it's really asking you to, strike a fulfilling balance between your ambitious work and career aspirations, and also maintaining your sort of nourishing leisure, personal enjoyment time as well with your family. And ultimately, Jupiter is also in a supportive trine from Saturn. So this really means that, you're grounded as well in your sort of joy and creativity in that fifth house, and that what you build has structure and foundations that are going to be able to give it a lasting quality. So, it's a good time to be building these new professional ventures and, improving or expanding your public identity as well. And with Saturn here in a trine, it also gives you patience as well. So it gives you the clarity to pursue your ambitions with both heart and a responsible plan. So just focusing a light on your Saturn and Neptune. So Saturn and Neptune, I'm just highlighting them here, have been moving through your first house. So for quite some time, because they're slow moving planets, especially Neptune. So Neptune has been in your first house since 2011. And Saturn has been there probably for about 2.5 years. They have moved out of your first house into your second, and now they've moved back in again. And they'll both have left and meet in a conjunction February 14th, 2026. But during their time there, you probably found that you've been going through a bit of a metamorphosis of your identity, which is now sort of culminating or finalizing. So, Saturn is the master. Its lessons are not always easy. So you may have been asked to go through sort of a deep sort of introspection of yourself. Saturn might have been forcing you to restructure your foundations, to really confront your authentic self. Saturn can be draining as well. So you might have find this quite wearying, really pushing your patience. But ultimately, any of the lessons or roadblocks or difficulties that Saturn throws at you really brings the lessons and the gifts of integrity and self-knowledge as well, which are really invaluable. So it really brings, strengthens your character. Neptune here as well, as I said, has been there for a long time. And so Neptune is really here. Neptune softens boundaries. It can cause confusion as well because of that, because you can kind of lose your sense of self and where you finish and the other person starts. But it can really bring idealism, compassion, a real sort of urge to connect with people. And also an interest in the metaphysical realms as well. So together, these planets, Saturn and Neptune together, have, probably delivered some very important, but perhaps at times difficult lessons. Especially Saturn can rain on Neptune's parade and bring some disillusionment and disappointment. But the essential lessons are about who you truly are and preparing you, putting you in really great stead for some of the new public chapter that is now beginning for you, Pisces. Also, you have Mars. So Mars has moved into your 11th house. Mars, and I'm just highlighting it here, Mars is in Capricorn. Mars is exalted in Capricorn, so it thrives here. And Mars is in a more unusually sort of constructive expression of itself rather than sort of destructive. It can be, assertive rather than dominant. So in the 11th house, which is your house of social connections, it's a very positive house. It's your social connections. It provides a real formidable, disciplined energy. And it also is not only your social circle, but it is also your dreams and aspirations, long-term goals. So here, it sort of gives you a formidable disciplined energy to pursue those goals. And being in the 11th house, it really suggests that the key to this is working towards these goals through collaboration. And so the drive here from Mars is very beautiful. Okay, it is strong, it is strategic, it has perseverance, it's constructive, it's enduring. So it's really perfectly suited at the moment for those group endeavors to get projects done. So just a note that, Mars can really push the ego to the forefront. And if you're working in a team or in a group, just to make sure that you work collaboratively, or if you lead, that you lead with, a collaborative mindset. So yeah, and the other thing too, with, a great way to sort of channel this Martian energy in your 11th house would be to really engage some group sports or some group sports that really help you to get that sort of Martian energy out. Okay. But really the main thing here is that, shared efforts with other people will lead to mutual and personal success. Anything else to mention? Yeah, so the other thing I just wanted to say is that Uranus has been moving through your third house for the last 8 or so years. It's about to leave July 26 next year. So Uranus here in your third house has really been bringing some big changes to the way that you think, so your day-to-day mind. It's also probably brought changes to your local environment. Maybe you've been moving through different parts of the neighborhood. It can bring sudden changes or, sometimes unsurprising or shocking events as well into your neighborhood. It also can involve your siblings as well. So it's also how you communicate. So that could be if you're a writer or if you do sort of any online, online communications through media. This could have really brought some sweeping changes through that third house of your local environment as well. And I think that's all I wanted to say. So just to sum up, just one more thing I wanted to mention. You've got, I mentioned those changes in terms of your first house and having, Neptune and Saturn there. Overall, too, you've got the nodes of the moon sitting in your first and seventh axes. So that's from your Pisces to your Virgo axis. So, with the North Node here in Pisces, there's been a real growth here, although not necessarily easy growth. And also with your South Node in your seventh house, there could have been some, need for letting go in terms of your committed relationships, not necessarily letting go of a relationship itself, although that could have been the case, but perhaps certain aspects of how you show up in relationships. So in the next year or so, look for sort of changes within that first 7 house of you and others as well. So that can really involve, asking yourself how much you give in relationships, how much you keep for yourself, where you draw the boundaries, do you lose yourself in relationships, all of these aspects of self and the other as well. Okay, so I guess the ultimate, this new moon is representing is with some of the sort of new lessons and wisdom that you've discovered about yourself in the first house, and the drive that you have with Mars in your group activities as well. It's really saying that these new beginnings in your career, your first house, and how you show up publicly is really being supported by your creativity, by your family, by your children, by your true self, and that ultimately your goals, your ability to fulfill your goals and dreams is rooted at the moment in working collaboratively with others, with mentors, with allies, and people that share your values as well. All right. So good luck with that, Pisces. I hope you have a good rest of December.